Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands and dust off your broomsticks and join us as we unlock the secrets behind Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 12, Nicolas Flamel.
Oh man, we have finally made it to Flamel.
To Flamel!
Of course, it's been a mystery for our little golden trio for just one hot second.
It has been a little bit of a mystery. They've been looking for it. This is one of those things where it's like there's a line in this chapter where Harry is saying like he knew he'd read the name before somewhere, and it's like I remember as a kid having no recollection at all that he had read the name on the chocolate frog card earlier in the story. But like I'm so curious because I'll just never know. Like if you're an adult reading this, is it like super obvious? So you're like, oh yeah, it was on the chocolate frog card. Or it's like, yes, clearly this book was not that long. And if Harry thinks he's read it, you, the reader, have definitely read it because it's not like it wasn't even books ago. This is book one. So
that's the thing is that like, yeah, I think that this chapter is a really good representation of the evolution of my own like consumption of media, because this is one of those moments where it's like if you're paying sharp and close attention to specific details.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, I mean the Nicolas Flamel line on the back of the chocolate frog card is a nearly throwaway line.
It is a nearly throwaway line, and the thing is, even if you remembered, like when Hagrid like says Nicolas Flamel, if you were like, oh, that's who Dumbledore knew, it's like even if you went back and found it, it doesn't necessarily help you because all you then learn is that it was Dumbledore's partner in alchemy, and if you don't know anything about alchemy, that's still not going to get you very far. And if you're like an 11-year-old like reader of the book, chances are you don't know about alchemy, right, even though all alchemy means is Sorcerer's Stone, which is the title of the book.
Yes, precisely. So if you've dug deep into like any history, like I imagine there are like some college professors who are reading the books to their kids and they're like, oh, Nicolas Flamel, that's interesting, because like one of the fun facts about Flamel is that he is in fact a real person,
right?
Like, and I think his wife they actually call by name in this chapter when they finally Paranel, yes,
yeah.
That is actually the real Nicolas Flamel in the real world's wife. That is her name. So that is actually an actual piece of information that is true, and those two real living people did live their life in pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone.
Right. They did not make it, but then post-mortem they were like some other company would like attributed them as having successfully done it, and they knew the recipe.
Yeah, apparently. But
yeah,
also,
obviously they don't.
right, because they're not here still with us.
Yeah.
There is that. But anyway, yeah. So no, I think this is kind of cool, and as I've gotten a lot older, whenever I'm watching like a new series on Netflix, or like if there's like a detail or like a character they're giving just like a little bit extra, like attention to, it's definitely one of those things where you're like, okay, that's someone to watch.
This is like so this is something I've started to try and tune into on like reality shows, because screen time is like the gold metric of like who's doing better in the show,
right?
And like I'm watching Survivor this season, and it's like I'm starting to try to guess like who's gonna win. It's like the people editing it know who wins, and they want you to like who wins, right, and they want it to be compelling, so they're gonna put whoever wins probably on camera the most, because like if you didn't get to know them, then it's a boring win.
This would be like an interesting stat to have somebody go through like each season of Survivor, total how much screen time each person gets, and see how well it correlates with the winners.
Oh, I know. And there is an Instagrammer, I think it's just called Bachelor Data, who does this exact thing for like all the Bachelor spin-off shows. And it's just like this contestant got the most screen time, and look at that, like whoever got the most screen time in episode 1 either got the most screen time because they were going home like that week, or because they're like in the final 4.
Yes,
and it's they set you up immediately for it.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly how do we get on here. Small details.
Small details. Yeah, paying attention to the little things, and and again, I mean, this is the type of thing where I've always said, like with the Potter saga, it would have been so much fun for us as theorists to have been doing what we do now, when the books were coming out. But then even if let's say it's 100 years in the future, people have set books down for so long that like there's not just like resting canon inside of people's heads, and they were to make in the year 21, 23, if they were to make like the Harry Potter TV show and people are like, oh yeah, it's this like old book series that was super popular.
Right. Yeah. Wouldn't that be crazy? Like it's just completely like fallen off the map.
Yes. But then it would be amazing if they did like a chapter by chapter breakdown in episode per. And at that point in time, like there was like reference to Nicolas Flamel in like one of the earlier episodes, and deep divers could go back, because that's the other thing too, is that like how much theorizing do you do inside of the same book?
Right.
Like how often are you putting the book down to just sit there and contemplate and be like, wait a second. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm putting the pieces together. It's interesting that Quirrell happens to be in each of these scenes. Like,
right. Like, could you pick up on that Quirrell's the bad guy?
Right. It's like we're not seeing McGonagall in each one of these scenes. It's always Snape and Quirrell every time.
Yeah.
And it seems like every single time, Quirrell always seems so inferior and scared and all the rest. So it's like especially for an 11-year-old, but for anybody reading the book, you're just. It's a great decoy. You're just not paying that much attention.
It's a great decoy, and then on top of that, the entire Nicolas Flamel mystery is just a decoy.
True.
Like,
also true. Yes.
It's not like they're hunting on that because they want to know what Fluffy's guarding, but like you, the reader, could probably figure out again from the title that it's the Sorcerer's Stone, and it's like, but you're so invested in like who's Nicolas Flamel? Like you're more focused on that than you are like, is Quirrell the bad guy? Because it's like,
yes.
there's no doubt in your mind that it's Snape. He's just mean all the time. And I will say this chapter in particular, I think it abuses a little bit of there's a scene towards the end of the chapter where Snape is talking to Quirrell,
yeah.
and the line of questioning I feel like is like unfair to the reader. It's like there's no reason, like when you know the whole story, Snape's line of questioning to Quirrell in the forest makes no sense.
I know, and I almost want to like just put like an earmark in that, because
yes, we'll come back to it.
It was the number one thing as I finished this chapter. I was like, I really want to talk to Jay, because I think I find this to be written in such a way that is that may fall under critique more than other aspects. So we'll come back to it.
We will.
I feel like that's a good tease for what's to come in today's episode.
All right. Well, we'll start getting into the page by page here in a second. But first, I did want to draw attention. I just want to give a huge shout out to all of our listeners, Ben, because people have been posting their Spotify Wrapped everywhere. Did you get yours, like your personal one?
I got my personal Spotify Wrapped, which I'm not like
all Taylor all the time.
All Taylor, yeah, a big Swiftie.
Yeah.
But for real, no. But my number one song is like a heavy metal version of one of the songs from Moana.
That is amazing.
So it's like, I love the heavy metal covers. How Far I'll Go.
That's so funny. Mine was Bluey.
Wow.
Yeah, just the Bluey album. In particular, I've seen a lot of other parents that it's like, was Bluey your top album this year? Because it was mine. And it's like, tell me you're a parent without telling me you're a parent kind of memes.
Yeah.
And then but I'm a little proud of my kids, because I've talked to other parents who were like in this category, and you're like, we had like our top songs like Cat Squad or something. I'm like, oh wait, I don't know that one. And it's like, oh yeah, you don't know Cat Squad? Cat Squad's like a song that's like played in the background by one of the annoying toys, but it's not like featured in the episode so much. It's just like every time it comes on, the dad has to be like, no.
It turns out Cat Squad.
We got Cat Squad in ours, even though I will tell you, it is equally annoying to real life parents. So there's that. Okay. But anyway, most people are getting their Spotify Wraps, and it just tells you about your listening habits. But if you're on the other side, if you were the people making stuff that other people listen to, like podcasts like this one, you get your own Spotify Wrapped for like how things did. So it was very, very fun to go through and look at the Spotify Wrapped. Just so some fun facts we got out of it is that this podcast, Through the Griffin Door, was streamed in 97 different countries.
Which is just unbelievable.
Crazy.
That's wild.
I know.
So thank you guys so much.
And this was what a really cool stat I thought, is that the top country was predictably the United States, but that was only 42% of the global community.
I know. I was like, whoa. I don't think we've ever had one of our projects before be more popular internationally than here in the States.
Yeah, so whilst while the largest amount of concentrated people live in America, they would be outnumbered worldwide.
Yes,
which is
yes.
crazy to
That
me.
is crazy,
So that's
yeah.
amazing. It gave us like our average rating for the year via Spotify, which was 5.0 out of 5.0. So bravo. Thank you guys for all those amazing ratings and reviews. And then we even got one that said we charted for 5 weeks and peaked at number 1. And I was like, at number 1, what? Like on what specific chart? I don't know.
I know. I saw that same stat and I was like, wait a second, what? Like,
Wait.
Like we were never number. We were never number 1.
Were we number 1? I don't know, but that's what it said. I have the stat. I've shared it on Instagram today. This is one of those rare occasions where I was like, I'm gonna need some permission to brag for just 1 second. Just like, okay, this is pretty cool though, right? Like this is cool.
No, I know. It's just absolutely incredible. Yeah. So it's really neat to see that.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And then I was looking at some other just random more like Apple charts today. We were presently number 5 in America for entertainment news. So bravo to us.
Okay.
And we're presently in the same category, number 1 in Guyana. Guyana, they love us down there, man.
How about it?
I know.
How about it? Shout
Bravo.
out to Guyana.
So that was really fun. So those were just some of our fun Spotify rap stats. Thank you guys so much for listening. It was so fun to look at those, and I can't wait to continue doing it. And we'll jump in now more into Chapter 12, Nicolas Flamel. So the basic breakdown here is that the Gryffindor versus Hufflepuff Quidditch match is looming, and if Gryffindor wins, they'll take the lead in the House Cup from Slytherin, something that hasn't happened in 6 years. And I wanted to come back to that particular fact in a second.
Okay.
Harry, Ron, and Hermione encourage Neville to stand up for himself, which sets up a big scene later on in the book.
Yes.
Hermione, they quickly finally solve who Nicolas Flamel is, what Fluffy's guarding. They discover Snape's going to referee the Quidditch match. And then after the match, for some unknown reason, Harry is left completely alone by himself and follows Snape into the woods where he overhears a suspicious conversation.
Yeah.
So this chapter, I feel like it's like a lot happens, but overall, I felt like it was something of a low point for the book. There's a lot of like, we got to take a couple leaps of faith here in a couple of directions.
Yeah, no, one of the things that I found to be particularly interesting is that, I always remember loving the Quidditch matches. And this particular Quidditch match is not even told from Harry's perspective.
No, it's not. Yeah,
You
you're
know?
just like in the stands with like Ron and Hermione.
Right. This is totally like one of those like Mandela effect situations for me where I'm like, I don't remember it being this way.
Yeah.
Like, I would have assumed that every single Quidditch match would be told from Harry's point of view. So just another one of those rare circumstances that really feels not that there's none of them. I mean, eventually we'll have like, the Riddle household and Frank Bryce kind of going up there and exploring, the lights on and stuff like that. Like, but of course, Harry is still witnessing that whole scene unfold through his dreams. It's the beginning of Goblet of Fire. And then we have Spinner's End with Snape, Narcissa, and Bellatrix fast forwarding to Half-Blood Prince, where the unbreakable vow is made. But
and then even the planning of the Seven Potters meeting in Deathly Hallows.
The planning
of the Battle of the Seven Potters, which I guess the Death Eaters are planning to attack early.
Oh yes. You're right. You're exactly right. That's like, but then that's following Snape.
Yeah.
But this is a strange situation where it's still a very Harry centric situation. I mean, Harry is like physically and like from a narrative standpoint, the center of attention inside of this match, and it's not.
Yes.
It's not mentioned from his point of view.
Yeah, it's rare that inside of a chapter the point of view switches away from Harry.
You have to wonder if this is at all done just simply because like how much inside of this first story, like can you just deliver two proper Quidditch matches, like complete top to bottom with what's going on, and this chaser did this, and this score happened here,
right.
And like even the fact that the like Harry ends up winning the match within 5 minutes, like kind of proving once and for all, like, hey, I'm good at this for real. Almost feels a little bit like, this match needed to go quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great situation. It's a great example of like the Quidditch itself as an entity driving the plot forward, but the match itself not being that important.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Exactly. So anyway, so we start off the chapter here, and Harry basically coming on the heels of his adventures with the invisibility cloak and exploring the Mirror of Erised. He's basically decided after his interaction with Dumbledore to hang up the old cloak or fold it and put it in the bottom of his trunk.
Yep.
and sort of work his way there. He does start having the nightmares.
I know. I read that and I was like, I don't really remember that particular line. I was like, that's so sad that like he got to see his parents and it was like such a happy thing, and he went back and then he like stops going and now is having nightmares. Not because like he misses them, but because having seen them, the once dormant memory in his mind of them being murdered is becoming more and more clear.
Yes, like more of the details are finding their way back into his memory, which is just devastating to think about. So we're getting a little bit of that, like some different reactions from Ron and Hermione, where I think Ron is just sort of like see, that's exactly what Dumbledore meant. It could make you go, it could drive you mad, and it's like, oh no.
Yeah, right?
You don't want to think that's what happened to poor Harry.
Yeah. There's a line here about Hermione. It says, she was torn at the horror idea of Harry being out of bed, roaming the school 3 nights in a row, and disappointment that he had at least not found out who Nicolas Flamel was. So this is one of those things that I just finished reading the first book to my son Luke, so we've watched the movie.
Yes.
And it's like, this is one of those weird like book versus movie things where like in the movie Hermione comes up and tells, like, she's about to leave for Christmas break and she's like, we haven't found them in the library yet. She's like, well, we haven't looked in the restricted section. Happy holidays. And then like leaves. Like she totally tells them to go do it.
Right.
Yeah.
This is Hermione like planting permission, being like, wink, wink.
Yeah. And I was like,
I don't want to be here to be like one of the, I don't want to be like, involved in this particular portion of rule breaking. But as long as I'm not here,
you may as well go look. Yeah. And this is before she even knows they have the invisibility cloak. So I went back and looked, and like in the book, Harry just wanders past the restricted section and is like, I wonder. And so he has his own idea about it. So Hermione's not involved at all. But
So then immediately following that, we learned that Wood is working the Quidditch team harder than ever. And there's a couple of paragraphs back to back that kind of stood out to me because they both reminded me a lot of Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yep. Okay.
For very similar reasons, both of which kind of would tie back to Lupin in particular. But of course, we just mentioned Harry's having these nightmares and stuff. But it said, quite apart from wanting to win, Harry found that he had fewer nightmares when he was tired out after training.
Yes.
This is interesting to me because when Harry is learning to cast his Patronus at some point in time, the first memory that he tries to use in order to like summon like the most positive thing to overcome the intensity of the presence of the Dementor is his first time ever flying a broom. And so to me, this is almost like one of those instances like where positive experiences almost sort of like are actually part of the recipe that help like fight off the darkness altogether.
I mean, literally, even later in the chapter, Dumbledore will come up to him after the match and say, nice to see you haven't been brooding about that mirror. Been keeping busy. Excellent.
Yes. So it's almost like this is actually like a you can start to understand even like magically how positive memories could be fuel for creating something that is otherwise like concentration of positive force.
Yeah.
Because that memory, that thought is the essential ingredient in being able to cast the Patronus.
Right.
So I like that. And then it's immediately followed up with this scene where, let's see here. Oh wait, maybe I was jumping ahead just a little bit. I may have got my pages wrong. It's the scene where Neville returns to the Gryffindor common room and he's run into Malfoy, who cast the leg locker jinx on him.
Yep.
And basically, he's like, everybody's kind of giving Neville advice inside of the moment, and Ron saying like, you've got to stand up to him and stuff like that. But what Harry does is reach into his pocket and hand him a chocolate frog, which is kind of interesting because this again is a little bit of like a Lupin thing where it's like, this is just Harry having good instincts.
It's just good instincts about chocolate.
Yes, because like again, magically, it seems like chocolate quite literally has like healing properties that can like help you recover from magical malady, if you will. And so it's just like the fact that like this is the specific thing that he does in this situation is like Harry's right on cue without knowing why he's doing it.
It is. Yeah, this chapter does have a bunch of things that like speak to a lot of the things Dumbledore like finds more important than like things that like Voldemort doesn't understand, like to his like downfall.
Yes.
Like the power of like candy and friendship and sports and love and stuff like that. Like all of these things are very present in this chapter, and they're all things Voldemort doesn't understand.
Yes.
That like Harry reaches for immediately, or is like, oh, I'm having nightmares. Let's go focus on something like sports.
Right.
And it's like that is all stuff that like Voldemort can't get.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's what allows Voldemort to be Voldemort for worse.
Yes.
I was going to say for better or for worse, but just for worse.
Okay, so I don't know if this counts as foreshadowing, but I just thought it was like a little funny thing. So when they're practicing Quidditch, they find out that Snape is going to be refereeing, and Oliver tells the team, he said, that's exactly the sort of thing that's going to lose us the match. Snape's refereeing this time, and he'll be looking for any excuse to knock points off Gryffindor. And it says, George Weasley really did fall off his broom at these words, and I just thought that was funny because it's like later on in Deathly Hallows, Snape is the one who hits George from a broomstick with the Sectum Sempra curse and like take his ear off.
Oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't catch that at all.
Yeah, so it's like
so Snape is responsible for George Weasley almost being debroomed or just quite literally being debroomed.
Yeah. So the next time, Snape. The news that Snape is going to be refereeing causes George to almost fall off his broom, and then later in Deathly Hallows, when they're both on brooms together again, he actually takes George's ear off. So
wow.
Yeah, just totally random, but there you go.
Nope, that's a good one. That
was a fun one.
This is another one of those situations where like Snape's refereeing. I mean, to be fair, like you might call this particular circumstance unfair, just given the fact that Snape very clearly cares about winning the House Cup and the Quidditch Cup. But it's not exactly like Madame Hooch didn't allow 5 illegally scored goals like while she was looking the other way against Slytherin. So it's like, you might literally think like, oh man, well, Snape's not going to play fair, but it's like Madame Hooch wasn't exactly doing great either.
Not only does she like not stop the game, and Marcus Flint, all of his goals count, but 3, like she was unable to do anything about the broom being cursed, you know?
Right, yes.
Like you did, like to the point where she doesn't even stop the game. So it's like, she's just a very ineffective referee.
I know. The thing that blows my mind, though, is that we, of course, know, taking several steps backwards and looking at this like from the perspective of adults, it's sort of like, okay, the reason Snape's out there is just to make sure that Harry is okay. Like, this is almost certainly at Dumbledore's request,
right?
That Snape be out there. Although, I mean, the difference between him being out there on the broom versus just standing in the stands doing exactly the same thing seems
I know, sort of there.
Minimal at best.
And then like Dumbledore's presence at the match seems to like indicate to everyone like, okay, that's okay, everyone's safe anyway.
Right. Yes, if Dumbledore himself is just there, which it also always surprises me that Dumbledore just doesn't attend the matches.
I know, like why wasn't he at the first match? That is bonkers to me. That's another thing that like it's easy to miss because of the movies. Like in the movies, Dumbledore is there at the first match, which then makes you wonder, like, why didn't Dumbledore do something about it if Snape was doing something about it?
That's a good point.
It's like Dumbledore really should not be at the first match, but then he definitely should be because, like, at the end of the day, he's like the principal of the school. This is a big school event happening on the weekend. Like, what else? This is his job.
Maybe the first go round, Jay. Maybe the first go round, he's just like hauling the mirror of Erised through the front door, and he's just like, goodness gracious, this thing is heavy.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
he's
up in school setting that up.
The monstrous mirror into the door.
But no, we already know well, perhaps at the time, but the mirror is already at the school, right? Like,
yeah, no, I know.
Okay,
I was trying to invent wildly there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But anyway, the thing I can't believe is that like Snape is quite literally on orders. What he is doing there is operating with the intention of not allowing Harry to be damaged, but also there's like still a little bit of like pettiness. There's enough pettiness in there where he's like, I'm here to protect the kid, but like I'm not gonna let him win the game if I can.
I know, like we're still gonna like favor Hufflepuff. Okay, like
my brain,
come on,
my brain would not work this way.
Oh my god, it's so hard to comprehend because like there is like this funny like once the game starts, there is like a moment where it's like like immediately Snape awards Hufflepuff a penalty, but it says because George Weasley had hit a bludge rat, and I was like, that's actually fair. You can't attack the ref. That's true of any sport. Like, if anything, you're lucky you didn't get thrown out of the game.
That's
honestly that's pretty lenient on Snape's part. But then, like 2 seconds later, it said Snape awarded Hufflepuff another penalty for no reason at all, and it's like, well, like why are you doing that? Like before that, you had good reason. Like there's no reason to just favor Hufflepuff like that. I don't. Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no, not entirely. Yeah, no, I don't know if it totally tracks. There is one scene real quick here that I wanted to touch on before we get to the game itself,
sure.
Which is that Harry leaves Quidditch practice and he's going back up to the the Gryffindor common room, where he finds Ron and Hermione playing chess, and I feel like there's just like a good Ron moment.
Yes.
This is like one of those things where, like basically Harry approaches, and if you can imagine, like Ron and Hermione are sitting there in like a heated battle of chess, and Ron says, "Don't talk to me for a moment," as Harry goes to sit down like next to him, and inside of this situation, he's halfway through saying, "I need to concentrate," when he cuts off because he catches sight of Harry's face and goes, "What's the matter with you? You look terrible." Like, this is one of those things where I do feel like people, it's like this is Ron being a really good friend. Like, he's very, like, he's focused on what he's doing, but then he's so dialed into Harry that it immediately takes priority.
Right, exactly.
Which I think is this is like a good Ron friend moment, which Ron doesn't always have. I mean,
he doesn't. He has a lot of very, very good ones in the first book for sure.
Yes.
I also just like that it does mention that chess was the only thing Hermione ever lost at. Something Harry and Ron thought was very good for her. Like, I like in the first book, it feels like they're really set up for like Harry to be the one who is like in the moment, good in the heat of battle, good instincts. Hermione with like this wide background knowledge of all the magic they might need, but maybe is not so good in the moment.
Yeah.
And Ron with like this like, I can come up with the strategy to employ, but then if things go crazy, Harry, you need to take over. And it's like that is abandoned pretty hard after the first book.
It is, yeah. It seems like there was some setup for Ron to be like the plan guy.
Yeah.
Like sort of like he might be able to like invent wildly, and Hermione be like, "Well, that will never work," and it's like, "But will it?
But won't it?"
And it's like it's just crazy
Won't
enough
it?
to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course, it won't matter because everything's going to go crazy as soon as the trouble starts. But
Yes, indeed.
Yep.
But yeah, so then of course there's the really great scene. I mean, overall, I mentioned a little bit already, but the scene with Neville kind of showing up, and Harry has a great moment as well, where Neville has basically just like really been bullied in the worst way. I mean, this is an instance where like the Malfoy has found Neville's weakness, and he is just needling it.
Malfoy, I never noticed it as much. Like, I guess Malfoy starts to like care less about Harry in the future books or whatever, but his obsession with the Gryffindor first years in this book is like, do you want them to like you, man? Are you like crushing on the first years here? Like, do you want them to be your friends? Because you are like going out of your way to be around them, even if you're being mean.
Yes. No, I know. I mean, it does. It holds some of that classic behavior where it's like the person you pick on is the person you actually really like.
Right.
Is what it feels like could be happening a little bit there. But So Neville says, "There's no need to tell me I'm not brave enough to be in Gryffindor. Malfoy's already done that." So I just wrote next to that, just mean and sad.
So mean.
But that being said, there's like a little bit of foreshadowing here because we know that coming up in like the next chapter or so is going to be let's see, it's Neville, Hermione, Harry, and Malfoy go into the Forbidden Forest, where we discover that Draco himself is rather terrified of the dark and the danger and everything. So a little bit of that going on, and then of course, I mean, that being said, like Malfoy just ends up being completely wrong, and in the end, Neville is sort of like the paramount representation of House Gryffindor.
Oh, of course, yes.
So he's just completely and utterly wrong. Not to mention, standing up to the bullies will end up being standing up to his friends, which is arguably even harder.
I know they'll like set this up, for later right there. Then there's this when they find who Nicolas Flamel is. There's this trick where Hermione says, "Stay there," and she said she sprinted up to the girls' dormitories. This is just like the first example of Hermione doing this stunt a lot, where she will like realize something and then run away without telling anyone what it was. And it's like they do eventually draw attention to it, but I thought that was just like worth noting that this is like the first time it happens.
Well, yeah. So for more Hermione runoff moments to come. Yep, absolutely.
Oh, and then she says, "I never thought to look in here," as she pulls out the book that actually has the information about Flamel in it. And it's like, it doesn't say what book it is. I want to know, like they looked at so many, what book finally had it?
I know. Yeah, that's true. And we do get the like little bit of light reading joke that they carry over to the movies. This is light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Is this the first mention we actually get of the word Sorcerer's Stone?
I think it is, yes. Other than the title, this is the first time we learn the word the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yes.
And what it does.
Yeah, so it's Hermione who says it. Nicolas Flamel, she whispered dramatically, is the only known maker of the Sorcerer's Stone. So I highlighted it and said, hey, that's the title of the book.
Hey, that's the name of the movie.
They did the thing where they said the thing. Yeah. So then next page over, we get to learn a little bit about Nicolas Flamel himself and what the Sorcerer's Stone is capable of doing, which is, of course, turning metals into gold in the otherwise elixir of life.
I love that it says that it belongs to Mr. Nicolas Flamel, the noted alchemist and opera lover, as if his love of opera is equal to his achievement in creating the Sorcerer's Stone. He's just as well known for loving opera.
Yes. It must be a remarkable passion for
Right.
opera
I
in
know.
order to merit such proximity there. The other thing I always think is interesting is that he just celebrated his 665th birthday, which of course means that his next birthday would be 666.
Yes, I made note of that as well. And that's just one of those things that I always have a question about, wizard books, whether or not, when Hermione's reading this, does that number change every year?
Oh.
Is it possible that he's older than 665?
It does.
Or is it magically enchanted to update itself?
Man, what a good question. I like to think that it's magically enchanted to update
I think
itself.
so too, yeah.
I definitely think that seems like a worthwhile bit. Either way, that's all such good trivia because that's one of those things. It's how old was Nicolas Flamel? And you're like, gosh, 600 and something, you know. And it's one of those where it's if you can use any number as a helpful hint inside of the 600 to 700 range, and can find that 666 thing and then work one backwards.
Right.
It's there is a way to learn it.
Right.
This is exactly like how many staircases are there in Hogwarts Castle? It's 1, 4, 3, that means I love you. Whatever.
There you go.
Go back 1. Yeah.
Go back 1.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway.
Yeah. So do you think that's intentional that it's he just misses out on 666?
It's a good question.
Right. Because that's sort of what Voldemort's after, or.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I think that's intentional.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It can't be a mistake.
Yeah, I think, that's that he just misses out on the evil number or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
The only other thing I can think is just it's a happy accident from the actual real Nicolas Flamel's, when he was born until 1990.
Oh, that could be it too.
Yeah, so there's some possibility where it's
that's worth fact checking, I suppose.
That would be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The other thing is that then immediately after that, Harry says, "A stone that makes gold and stops you from ever dying? No wonder Snape's after it. Anyone would want it." This is one of those. I think this is an illusion inside of lots of. Take any, modern Marvel superhero movie, any movie that features a super villain, kind of, your Voldemorts, Thanos, whatever, who want to take over, is immortality sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's I understand the underlying appeal and the generally shared fear of death. Is something that it's easy to understand on a very, very, very simple level, but it's also to imagine a world where it's okay, well, I just need to continue to and maybe I'm thinking about it way too literally, and if you had the Sorcerer's Stone, you could make gold, you could just go live and follow your passions for all the time and always.
Sure.
Because that would certainly then just be plenty attainable. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm gosh, this. I think immortality is overrated, and I also think that this idea of being the supreme ruler, sitting on top of the Iron Throne.
Oh, so much work.
It's so much
responsibility.
The basic guarantee of being a world leader is that 50% of people don't like you.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's just
right.
It's why do you want that?
I know.
Yeah, but somewhere along the way, I feel it's carried over from this idea of kings and queens and the ability to live in this giant glamorous lifestyle and stuff like that.
Right.
But I think it's more stressful than it's worth in my personal opinion.
Right. Yeah.
It's just a take there. So just a small aside on the consistent inclusion of this idea of either achieving immortality or otherwise just seizing power.
Right.
There's both of those sound rough.
Right. And it's also I guess as of the movie Crimes of Grindelwald, we sort of get the answer to the question of whether or not the elixir of life keeps you alive or like also like maintains your youth, and it mostly just keeps you alive. Yeah, like you're not like Nicolas Flamel is not like a 25-year-old looking dude who's 600.
See, and I actually felt like this was a giant missed opportunity in Crimes of Grindelwald, because what we meet him, he is ancient, and like Jacob Kowalski like shakes his hand, which like seemingly fractures it on contact, which essentially is like, what kind of quality of life is this person living over here? Like that seems so miserable. And at some point in time, you see Nicolas basically having to look at the book, the communicator book thing. That's like the earliest version of the Order of the Phoenix, maybe. And it's like he's basically being like called into action. He's like, I haven't seen action for however many 100 years or something like that. And then of course he does ultimately show up at the monastery at the end of the film. And it's one of those things where I was like, this to me, because they even give us a money shot in the movie of the Philosopher's Stone. I'm like, this to me feels like a missed opportunity to not have him show up all youthful and spry and young. And like what you see is like, I use the Philosopher's Stone to achieve this level of health when needed.
Right.
But like when he shows up, he's still just as ancient as
just
ever.
Old guy, yeah.
And I was like, oh man, like I feel like they could have younged him down from how we had just met him to be like, oh wow, that's a pretty powerful piece of magic. Like okay, like when he like he lives as himself, and that's being true to yourself. Like he's not lying to himself about his own age.
Yeah.
So you live in your everyday life and be true to yourself. That makes sense to me. But then when the moment is needed, you can seize the youthfulness from the stone. So
but
anyway, they didn't go that particular direction. Nobody asked me. So
nobody asked you, Ben.
That's just my 2 cents, and a huge departure from our chapter.
Yeah. So, speaking of things nobody's done, there's a line here that says Slytherin. The idea of overtaking Slytherin in the House Championship was wonderful. No one had done it for 7 years, which like the way that is written makes it sound like not only has Slytherin won the House Cup for the last 6 years, but no one has literally even taken the lead from them.
I know
in that time.
And what is remarkable to me about this is that during that period of time, Charlie Weasley was like apparently like the player of the year.
Not good enough to take the house lead.
Never at no point in time.
Even at this point, Slytherin has lost to Gryffindor, and they've still not lost the house lead. Like, what is going? I mean, this is one of those things. So like to me, either there is like cheating going on with like the points or whatever, and it's like sort of. I mean, but it doesn't look like it. That Snape is just like boosting his numbers all the time.
Right, especially because I think like, and everybody kind of makes the joke. It's sort of like like Dumbledore gets to the end of each year and he's like, all right, how many points do I need for Harry to win? Okay, carry the 3. Like whatever. It's like when Harry is there, Dumbledore is biased. He's biased towards Harry.
No doubt.
Everything has to do with Harry. He hires Lockhart to teach Harry about like the dangers of fame. Like he's got every single thing from the moment Harry steps into the school is all about Harry because there is a prophecy in play, because there is a Dark Lord attempting to return, because the fate of the wizarding world depends on it. So sacrificing certain things in the name of Harry having all the tools he needs inside of Harry's time there, absolutely something that Dumbledore is doing. I wouldn't argue with it ever.
Right. You'd say it's for the greater good.
I would say it's for the greater good. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that.
Yeah.
But then I would say anytime before that, though, I don't see any reason in the world why Dumbledore would be biased towards any houses whatsoever. I think that Dumbledore has enough righteousness in him to not do that.
Yeah.
And I suspect that he would also not allow Snape to unwittingly, just keep going and giving Slytherins more points to the point where it's like,
unfair.
It's like Sev. Nobody can win the House Cup if you keep doing this. Like I don't think he would permit it. So it's like it must be the case that Slytherins by their own merits are winning.
Yeah, this is why the end of this book, when Dumbledore gives the House Cup to Gryffindor, like obviously Harry and Ron and Hermione do great things and they earn a lot of points, and that's great. Clearly, Dumbledore is just pulling the rug out from under the Slytherins at the same time. Yes. And it's like I feel like it would feel better if the Slytherins had like done something bad too. Like it felt like they didn't deserve the lead. And it's like Malfoy is a jerk and he bullies some people here and there, but in general, Malfoy is not like super responsible for Slytherin's success in the House Cup.
Right.
Like there are 6 there's every other student in Slytherin has like not just won but dominated the other houses like at just schoolwork,
Yes,
which is how most of the points are given out.
Right.
And it's like it really stinks. If you're just a 7th year Slytherin student this year, it's like, are you kidding me, man?
I almost
like,
clean sheeted
I
this.
come on, that is now. I will say there is the other possible explanation for Slytherin's reign during this time period is possibly the same explanation for the like low class sizes, where like sometimes it seems like Hogwarts must be or it feels like Hogwarts is massive, but then you're like, well, there's only like 10 students per house per year, per house per year.
Right.
So 40 students, so like roughly 280 students, which doesn't seem like that big of an entire school all of a sudden.
No, it's smaller than our high school.
Smaller than our high school. And I mean,
Yeah.
you'd expect the wizard population to be a lot lower, but maybe not like less than 300 kids in the whole school for a whole country.
Right.
Like, is it that low? And the explanation sometimes given is that this particular class of students is coming out of it's like 10 years after wartime. So it's possible the population of parents making kids who would grow up to be wizards is just lower.
Yeah.
So in particular, though, because of Voldemort's specific nature and who was on his side, it hit the Slytherin collective of families would probably have been less affected in that way, such that they might have had more students or more unaffected families who were raising like children who were less affected in that way.
Yes.
So that is a possible explanation.
It is indeed. And another one that I think is super possible is you've also got Horace Slughorn out there who is making great connections for all of his former Slytherin students, and kind of like setting them up for paths for success. So it is entirely possible as well that there's like a certain kind of parent that they're like the possible doctors and lawyers or whatever of the wizarding world who are sending their kids with a little bit of an advantage, a little more privilege at stake, kind of stepping into their time at Hogwarts. So it's always possible.
It's possible. Not that Slughorn always played like house favorites.
That's also true.
He loved Lily Potter. Lily Evans, I guess.
Lily Evans. That's a good point.
Presumably, this is always a thing I wonder about the Slug Club, not to get too far off topic here, is like he loves Lily, and we know she was in the Slug Club, but it's also, she's in the same year as James and Sirius, who were described as the best at everything they did. Like, certainly James and Sirius were in the Slug Club too, if not Lupin as well, right?
Who knows? Maybe it was all the detentions. I mean,
that's true.
Which apparently they received hundreds of.
Hundreds.
Yeah. So anyway, maybe Slughorn was like, all right, you're talented, but you cannot stay out of trouble because I was gonna say he also overlooks Fred and George, but he's not there with Fred and George.
But even when he's talking to Harry, he's like, he laments that he didn't have Sirius in Slytherin. He's like, oh, talented young wizard. Too bad he wasn't in Slytherin.
I'd have liked the set.
I'd have liked the set. And it's like, but you still could have had him in the Slug Club, right?
Yeah, easily.
Yeah,
easily.
Like, if you thought he was that good, you still could have, like, quote unquote, collected him.
You know what? If Regulus was in the Slug Club, there's no way Sirius would go.
Oh, sure.
Even if he was invited.
I guess.
That's no way.
That's true. You're
Sirius
right.
Would be like, nope.
You're right. If Regulus is in, Sirius is not going, and then James is not going out of solidarity.
Right.
And then clearly, I doubt Peter would be invited, but I
don't think
Lupin would go either.
Right, yeah, I mean, yeah. Lupin, and this is like one of those where it's like, Slughorn is
you know what? Maybe Lupin would go.
You think so?
Because here's why. Because I'm just comparing them to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And Hermione goes. And Harry is frequently invited, but because Ron is not, he's like, I'm not going.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yep, you're absolutely right. Right. So maybe Lupin does still go if they're the counters of each other.
Right.
All right. Anyway, so we get a little bit extra foreshadowing now that we've gone completely off topic here. As the match grew nearer, we get a line that says Harry didn't know whether he was imagining it or not, but he seemed to keep running into Snape wherever he went. At times, he even wondered whether Snape was following him, and it's like, yes, he is.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then at the end of the paragraph, we also get Harry didn't see how he could, yet he sometimes had the horrible feeling that Snape could read minds, which he also can do.
And it's like, possibly is?
Yeah, it possibly is.
This is the thing, though. Because he's clearly, what is bonkers to me is that, this line and the fact that we know that Snape actually can read minds, and this line suggests that that's an established, like, quality of his early on. Like I think this is like a line that's supposed to age well. But the problem is that he is later in this chapter, like talking to Quirrell, trying to get information out of him, and is like unsuccessful at doing so. Which, at the very least, to me, seems like Quirrell must be good at occlumency.
Or Voldemort.
Or Voldemort is good at it. Yeah, I mean, I guess Voldemort does teach other people to do occlumency, and we know that he's good at it. So
I think that there's a chance if they are inside of one another's own mind that Voldemort can actively be the one.
Repelling Snape's legitimacy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I accept that.
That's my headcanon. So,
okay.
Anyway, let's see here. Then we finally make it to the Quidditch match itself, where Ron and Hermione basically are like waving him goodbye, wondering whether they'd ever see him alive again.
I know.
This is one of those things where I'm like, okay, that's an exaggeration, right? Like, you can't possibly have thought he was going into this match where death was on the line.
Where death is on the line. There's also this line where Neville, who couldn't understand why they look so grim and worried, or why they brought their wands to the game, and I'm like, what do you mean? Why would they don't you bring your wands with you everywhere, of the time, everywhere?
If I'm a wizard, it's always on me.
It is always on me.
Yes.
Like, I mean, my phone is basically always on me, and wand way better than phone.
Yes, absolutely. I would trade my smartphone for a working wand any day of the week.
Any day.
Any day of the week.
Any day.
Yeah. So yeah, then we've already mentioned it, but then Dumbledore does in fact come to watch the match, which is just something I highlighted. I was like, okay.
Yep, kind of talked like that. Talked about that a little bit earlier. Yeah, you'd think you'd always about there. Oh, we get the name of the spell for the leg locker curse, which is Locomotor Mortis, which I want to say just the loose translation is death to movement, which I think is a hilarious translation.
Yes,
that's basically what it does.
Yep. No, it's a good one. I mean, your legs in a lot of ways can be your primary, means for movement.
Yep.
And so to eliminate that makes sense.
Okay, and then we get to the next page and we're in the match, and we shift the focus down to to Ron and Hermione in the stands. And who decided this baffled me when I was reading it, is that all of a sudden Draco sits behind them, and I'm like, why like Draco. The stands are massive, like you have to be going out of your way to come just like bully these people. What are you doing?
I actually like how the movie does it, where there's like house stands for each house, because I'm like, that makes sense to me. Like, I could see going and cheering on with your fellow classmates,
right,
or whatever, from Gryffindor. The fact that they're all in the same stands together, it's like, what? Why would they all be there?
Yeah. For that matter, this is a great example of just proof that the houses that are not playing do attend the matches.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Slytherin's not playing and Draco's there. But you know what Harry never does? Go to any other Quidditch game ever.
It's almost like he doesn't actually like the sport. Yeah. He's like, I like to play. I don't like to watch. I want to be in it,
You think he'd go to the Ravenclaw games, He's like, oh my God, I gotta see how Cho's doing. I just want to see who's going to win the match. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I would not mind just the casual throwaway line where you just get to go see like Harry. It's like, it's like you don't have to like give us all the details. Just be like, oh yeah, I was going to go to the Ravenclaw match this weekend. It's like, why?
Hey,
what are you doing that for, Harry?
Just see what's happening.
I'm just interested. I'm just going to pick up some tips.
Yeah. She must already be there, right? Probably not. Maybe not on the team yet. But Cho's older, right?
Yeah.
So she's a second-year Ravenclaw. Ravenclaw doesn't have a huge presence in this book.
Not so much. Let's see here.
Which in the movie bothers Luke to no end, because of the sorting ceremony in the movie, you get to see obviously like the main cast all get sorted into Gryffindor and Draco into Slytherin, and then you get Hannah Abbott sorted into Hufflepuff, but the sorting hat does not say Ravenclaw in the movie.
Man, this is so it's like literally so you don't get a Ravenclaw sorting, and you don't see Harry cast a spell the entire.
It's so what?
It's like there's like certain very essential details. So if anybody ever does remake the series, which it sounds like possibly is going to happen, it's almost just like, can we just see more of that? Let's just show us some a little more.
Well, magic. I mean, to be fair, he also doesn't cast a spell in the book.
To be fair, he doesn't cast a spell in the book.
It is implied, because it talks about the exams and what they had to do, and clearly you would have to have used your wand to complete the exams. So it is implied off page that he used his wand to cast spells successfully, because he passes the exams.
Yeah.
But on page, when we're with him, he does not cast a spell.
Yes, indeed.
Which is just like, how? What?
How? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, as we move down though, Harry of course wins the match in a record 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Basically the fastest that anybody has ever been able to capture the snitch before. You get the line from Dumbledore where he basically congratulates Harry and is like, I'm glad to see that you haven't been, brooding about the mirror. But then you get a line that says, Snape spat bitterly on the ground. And it was just like, this is another one of those details where it's sort of like, why?
Why?
Like, why would Snape spat bitterly on the ground? Like, what is it? Like, this is like one of those things where it feels like it's going too far out of the way to suggest that like Snape is so petty as to be upset
Right.
that Harry fairly won a game.
I know. Like, it's like that's one of those, like, it feels like unfair to the reader. It's like it gives him like a, I guess he did spit at the ground, and maybe he just is that petty. But this chapter is the big it's Snape, he's the bad guy chapter.
Yes, it definitely has got like flashing lights all around it.
Yeah.
And I want to get into that properly because we're really about to dig into the weeds of this chapter.
Yes, we
in
are.
my opinion. There's one line that I want to talk about in particular that stood out to me, but it's basically Harry's own sense of pride and what it means to him to have like won the second match, because you get the line that says he'd really done something to be proud of now. No one could say he was just a famous name anymore. And this is just like one of those things where it's like, Harry struggles with imposter syndrome for mostly
for quite
all
a
of
bit.
the story.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say he's only overcome it in the flaw in the plan, which is the final like key chapter of the whole series, sans the epilogue. But this is like a good brief moment where I think it's a highly relatable thing in life, because I mean it's so remarkable how quickly you as any individual out there is willing to dismiss your own success as beginner's luck, or I was just on the right side of chance. Or,
right.
like
It's like, it's not like someone else caught the snatch and he's on the winning team.
Right. Yes. So like this is like a prime example of it's like, yes, you did it not only once, but you've done it twice. You have now proven that wasn't a fluke, that you are in fact good. So anyway, I think personally that's just something I've struggled with in my life before, where it's like anytime anything good has happened, I've always assumed that it was just like, well, that was probably it though.
Ben, can I tell you something?
Yeah, what's up?
We are the #1 news entertainment podcast in Guyana.
That's true.
So,
wear
wear that with pride.
I will.
We are, yes, for sure.
I
if
love
you're
it.
listening down there, shout out to you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for doing that for us. So, though, anyway, as we trudge forward, though, basically Harry is sort of amidst all the celebration when all of a sudden he is just by himself, taking his broom to the broom shed.
This is the most unbelievable part of the whole chapter.
Yeah.
Is that so? What is happening here is that for the first time in the last 7 years, Slytherin has lost the lead in the House Cup, thanks to Harry Potter, the chosen one special boy who defeated Voldemort and has now simultaneously knocked Slytherin off the podium with a Hogwarts record fast catch of the snitch. And suddenly he's alone in the locker room. Like, the Gryffindors win a lot of other Quidditch matches that have a lot more celebration following them than this on way less dramatic terms.
I know. Yeah.
Why is he by himself? It makes no sense.
Yeah, the rest of this chapter is probably the one that I would say, I feel like the most I don't know about that. It's like, are you sure? But basically, yeah, so Harry he's walking down with his broomstick. He sees a shadowy figure leave the castle and work its way towards the Forbidden Forest. Recognizing that it was Snape prowling, Harry actually hops onto his Nimbus 2000 and takes off. This is one of those things where I'm like, this feels like grounds for expulsion. Like, I don't know why, but it's like the idea of using your broom to go in and like fly about the grounds.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that seems so off limits.
It does feel a little off limits.
It's like it almost feels like the type of thing. I mean, they're not allowed to do magic in the corridors.
Yeah, I know.
Let alone just go for a joyride on your flying broomstick around.
I know.
Around the grounds. But
let me tell you, if you've played Hogwarts Legacy, you can fly your broomstick wherever you want.
Okay. So it's just wide open territory.
Maybe.
But anyway, that one always stands out to me where I'm like nervous on his behalf. I'm like, Harry, someone's gonna see you.
Not just someone's going to see you. You're there to spy on the professor that actively hates you.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
But he does fly around. He's trying to listen in on the conversation that Snape is having. Harry does discover that the person that he is talking to is none other than Quirrell. He does land in the towering beech tree, which is interesting because there is a very famous beech tree next to the Black Lake that shows up.
Right.
And it's like they're always doing homework underneath it. It's like where James is tormenting Severus in the Prince's Tale, the flashback.
Yeah.
So this beech tree in particular is particularly like relevant, I think, overall to the story. Like we keep coming back to it in a way that I don't think as many times as I've read it, I've been able to truly find the significance behind this particular tree. But like it is like
It's just a notable tree.
It's a notable location.
Yeah.
It's a notable location.
Is there something about like beechwood wands or something?
I'm sure that there is. I know that oaks are considered the kings of the forest and beech is considered the queen of the forest.
Oh, interesting.
Like as far as like tree lore.
Oh,
is
tree
concerned.
lore.
Yeah. Not even inside the wizarding world.
Okay, I was like, oh, this we're outside now.
Yeah, we're outside. Yeah. So that's just externally. So I mean, beech trees are rather magnificent looking trees.
Yeah. Okay.
They can look really impressive. So it makes sense. It is the kind of tree that you could in fact land in. So there's that.
All right.
From there though, we basically have the scene, and this is the one where it's like I would almost want to like dissect everything that Snape is saying because you, the reader, are supposed to be seeing it without context, and the way that you're supposed to interpret this particular scene is it's almost like because you don't know the position that Snape has, you are supposed to believe that like it's all coming across as incredibly incriminating. It's all suggesting that like Snape is clearly possibly working with Quirrell or attempting to get information from Quirrell about how to get past Fluffy and how to collect the Sorcerer's Stone.
Right.
But me knowing the whole situation, me knowing the twist of the book, still reads it and it still sounds really bad.
It doesn't. I mean, it sounds really bad, and it's like it almost doesn't feel like it makes sense.
Yes, exactly. It's like like Quirrell is sort of like, I don't know why you'd want to meet out here of all places, Severus. And Severus, Snape is all like, I thought we'd want to keep this private. Students aren't supposed to know about the Sorcerer's Stone after all. And it's sort of like, so is Snape, the best example that I could come up with is that Snape is once again playing double agent here. That like Snape is attempting to convince Quirrell that he is on Quirrell's side and they together are attempting to capture the Sorcerer's Stone.
Okay.
That is like the explanation that works best for me. But then, you're
right, because like otherwise, like why, like Quirrell otherwise knows that Snape knows that he's trying to steal the stone.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Right.
Basically, like it's just point blank that like this, the way it reads is almost as saying that Snape. Yeah.
You're right. That almost has to be what it is that Snape is trying to tell Quirrell, like, you are going to help me steal it, but in telling me how you would do it, you will be revealing to me how far you, who I think is trying to steal it, have actually gotten.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
Because the line in particular that really stood out to me was just, we'll have another little chat soon when you have time to think things over and decide where your loyalties lie.
Right.
And it's like, if you're supposed to be reading this and Snape is supposed to be convincing Quirrell not to do it, then why would he say the phrase, have you found out how to get past the beast of Hagrid's yet?
Right.
It's like, I mean, I'm going to have to turn you in. Have you found out how to get past Fluffy? Because if so, like, that's too far. That's
right.
too much information.
Like if you're Snape and you're asking Quirrell, like, do you know how to get past the stone? Like if you're, if your position is that you think Quirrell's trying to steal the stone and Quirrell thinks you're onto him, like he's not going to tell you how much he knows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know. It's a weird one.
It's as if Snape has like told Quirrell, like, you are going to figure out how to get past that dog so that we can steal it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It feels like that's more of what's going on, which
right.
maybe makes more sense in the scheme of even like Dumbledore's big plan, which is, this idea that Dumbledore is in fact pulling strings all along, because we know, again, when you go to the Prince's Tale, that by this point in time, Dumbledore has already assigned Snape the duty of keeping an eye on Quirrell, which means that Dumbledore already knows that Quirrell is trying to do something uncouth.
Right.
That like he's behaving in a way that is otherwise mysterious or unknown or like unusual in some way, shape, or form. So if you buy into the idea that what Dumbledore is attempting to do is essentially like align everything so that Harry goes down after the stone at the right moment, then having Snape operate on his behalf as an ally to Quirrell helps keep Dumbledore informed in just how much progress Quirrell is making.
Sure. But like, do you think, I don't even know if Snape knows Voldemort is involved, right?
I suppose he. Yeah, I suppose.
I mean,
he
Dumbledore just keep an eye on Quirrell, will you?
Right.
It's like,
yeah.
I think Dumbledore. That's the other thing. Is like, does Dumbledore know that Voldemort is involved? I think he must. Yeah.
I think he must because I mean, yeah. We'll come back to it eventually. But there's the line from Harry that after he's gone down into the chamber at the bottom, you know, where Harry will eventually pretty much say like, I think Dumbledore thought I deserved a chance to try.
Yeah.
And to me, the way it reads is that Dumbledore knows in book one, Dumbledore knows literally every single thing that is going on and sees Voldemort at this point in time as such a small threat.
Yeah.
That it's kind of like it's not that big of a deal. Like even sending Harry, you know, as we'll see soon, into the Forbidden Forest for his detention, where we know Quirrell/Voldemort is going to drink unicorn blood. Mm-hmm. It's like you're absolutely sending him into what is otherwise the lion's den.
Right.
You know, it's like you're sending him into a dangerous situation where the dark entity known as Voldemort is currently
right
and could strike. It means to me that Dumbledore has enough confidence that this Voldemort never stood a chance.
Right.
Like he never could do it.
I guess he sort of already knows like that Quirrell can't touch him too, like a little bit.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, because he's not like he's down there, but later on he's like, do you know why he couldn't touch you?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he thinks that's in play. Yeah. But so otherwise, yeah, like the Snape is talking to Quirrell and he says, yeah, you don't want me as your enemy. You know perfectly well what I mean. And then he has to ask, this part doesn't make sense to me. He says, you're a little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting. Like Snape doesn't know what the other enchantments are.
Oh yeah, I know.
Like, don't all the
line?
teachers know what the other things are? Like he's asking him, like, what did you do? Like what did Dumbledore ask you to do? Like, how are you protecting the stone?
Right. So the owl hoots, which basically is why we don't get the full context of the sentence. It says, an owl hooted loudly and Harry nearly fell out of the tree. He steadied himself in time to hear Snape say, you're a little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting. So it's like, what is the front half of that sentence?
I don't know. All I can imagine is that it's like, you're right. It's like as if Snape is coming to Quirrell as if Snape is trying to steal the stone and he's trying to get Quirrell to tell him, like as part of his cover, he has to like pretend he doesn't know what Quirrell, like if I'm trying to steal a stone, then I'll need to know how to get past what you did. So tell me, what's your bit of hocus pocus?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, at this point in time, it would come across to me as if Snape doesn't know the involvement of the other professors. Like that's how it kind of reads.
Yeah.
Like so if Snape is a double agent inside of the situation, then basically what he's saying is like I'm trying to help you here, and unless you can let me know your little bit of hocus pocus, like what did you do? Like
right.
That, you know, and if you're not willing to tell me, then you need to really determine where your allegiances lie.
Right.
Because where else would they lie?
Right.
With the school?
I know.
Like the safety of the stone?
I know. Like the allegiance, unless you're letting Quirrell know that you think he's trying to steal the stone, is your allegiance needs to be with me, Snape, or with the school.
Yeah.
And if it's with the school, I'm your enemy.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I think it's unnecessarily misleading. I think without this particular page, you the reader already think it's Snape. Like you've already been misled well enough. But this one feels like it goes a little bit too far, in my personal opinion. So anyway, we can move on from there, where Harry does return to the Gryffindor common room, and Ron is shouting, "We won! You won! We won!" And he get this line. It says, "And I gave Malfoy a black eye, and Neville tried to take on Crabbe and Goyle single-handed. He's still out cold, but Madame Pomfrey says he'll be all right." Oh man, talk about showing Slytherin. That I always love that line just because it's like Neville tried to take on Crabbe and Goyle single-handed. I mean, he lost, of course,
he
but
failed,
but he tried.
But he went for it, man.
Yeah, we're proud of him. We're proud of him.
No
Way
doubt.
Way to go, Neville. So there's a little bit of bravery coming through.
We get a little bit of a Marauders map action here too, where Fred and George stole, quote unquote, some cakes and stuff from the kitchens. Where it's like they later find out that Fred and George are not stealing anything; that they just basically show up and the house elves are like, "Here, you want food?"
Yes, they're very willing to do so. So that's like one of those party tricks that's a little bit less impressive when you know how easy it is otherwise.
Exactly.
Let's see here. So anything else major?
Nothing else major in the chapter. Basically, the trio just concludes that the stone is only safe as long as Quirrell's able to stand up to Snape. Oh no, we're all doomed.
Yeah.
Of course, at this point, they still don't even know Voldemort's involved. They're just like concerned about the safety of the stone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit interesting that nobody has theorized at this point in time that the most obvious threat to everybody is the one that would be, coming back.
Right, exactly. So it is interesting how the story is laid out where like you're distracted by the mystery of who Nicolas Flamel is and then by the idea that Snape is trying to steal the stone. And at no point, even though you've been introduced to the idea of Voldemort, like, are you concerned that he's even at play?
Right. Yeah, it's much more just the mean school teacher who you're worried about. Which,
right.
On some level, like this is like one of the things that I'm sure we'll talk about a lot with Umbridge. But like, when you get to book 5, the thing that makes Umbridge so despicable to the point where I think a lot of people hate Umbridge more than they hate Voldemort himself is it's a much more relatable villain.
Yeah.
And I think that this is also true once again for the exact same reasons. It's like, as an 11-year-old, the idea of like the power that teachers hold over you as a 3rd, 4th grade student, is rather substantial. And so the idea of having like that mean teacher who's got it out for you, like that's way more, it's easier to worry about and despise that character than it is some otherworldly dark lord that wants to seize all power and rain darkness on society. Like as an 11-year-old, you're not worried about those things.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
no.
It's harder to understand. But when he's a big bad that's just looming in the shadows or whatever, it's like when he shows up, you'll understand it when he gets there. Because you know how to understand a big bad basically enough because he's just a classic villain. So.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway, how about chapter art? What do you think?
Chapter art. So this one is interesting. So it is basically just Snape running into the forest. I think it's a little bit confusing because it doesn't really match the title of Nicolas Flamel that much, which I think is like that's not Nicolas Flamel running into the woods right there. Although this one's it's fairly interesting because this particular chapter art was used as cover art as well for some U.S. publications of the Sorcerer's Stone.
Interesting.
Yeah, so this was like the cover art some people had for, I think it was like, it wasn't the initial release because that's the classic one with Harry like on the broomstick trying to catch the snitch flying through the arches with the castle in the background and stuff that most people had. But this was a different one that I learned about when we were doing all the cover reviews of all the different Sorcerer's Stone ones, of which there's like over 100 different covers that have been printed for this book.
It's unbelievable.
But this was one of the U.S. ones. I think it was like the book fair edition. Like if you had the book fair come to your school, this is the cover you got. Yeah, so there's that. Otherwise, I don't necessarily love this one just because it doesn't match the title that much, and it's like it's not clear, I guess, whether it's Snape or Quirrell. It is Snape, I guess, running. That's who Harry eventually says he sees there. That doesn't look like a beech tree either, as far as I know.
Yeah, those are pine trees.
Those are pine trees. Yeah.
There is a question. Maybe this would be a separate game instead of rating our chapter art. Almost sort of like, what would you rename the chapter to be?
Yeah.
Because there's a part of me, like I know that event in let's see, is it Half-Blood Prince? I think it is. There's a chapter called Draco's Detour. I know that this is absolutely just stealing from that one, in which case you might need to rename that particular chapter. But Snape's Detour feels like it could just as easily be the name of this particular
It does.
chapter.
Snape, it does, right? Like, what?
Yeah. It's interesting to me. This would be like one of the ones that would totally get me on a quiz where it's like, what is the name of the chapter where Harry defeats Hufflepuff in record time? And it's like, you would never think that a Quidditch game takes place in the chapter titled Nicolas Flamel.
I know. I would even maybe just call it the Sorcerer's Stone.
You could call it the
because they find out about it. And I think most books have one of the chapters named after the title of the book.
Certainly Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, Chamber of Secrets does. The Prisoner of Azkaban. Does Prisoner? Maybe not.
Goblet of Fire
Goblet
absolutely
of Fire does. Order of the Phoenix absolutely does.
The
Half-Blood Prince. I think the book, right?
I think so. Yeah, I
Because
think
the book
so.
is, and then the Deathly Hallows. Yeah, I think so. Or is that chapter called Xenophilius Lovegood?
Ooh, no, I think it's the Tale of the Three Brothers.
Oh, okay.
Wait, it's one of those.
It's one of those.
Yeah,
Okay. But
so-
most of them, I think you could call this one The Sorcerer's Stone because that's where they actually learned about it, and it's the title of the book.
Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree. Especially because the chapter where Harry retrieves it from the mirror is also not called the Sorcerer's Stone.
I know,
So
yeah.
It's not like an argument as to which chapter better embodies.
Oh, I know. Because you could probably call that one The Sorcerer's Stone too.
You absolutely could.
Yeah.
I don't mind the man with two faces. I think that's good. But
No, that's good.
But I do think So I would say I think chapter art is kind of only okay for this one. But my rename would be Snape's Detour.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Or the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yeah.
I like both of those.
There we go.
There we go. So anyway, but looking forward ahead to next week's episode, which is going to be chapter 14, Norbert, the Norwegian Ridgeback, which
Yes.
I can only tell you that as I'm holding my book in front of me and seeing how little of this book is left, I can't believe how late this chapter happens in the story.
Dude, this is like, when I was reading this to Luke, I could not believe it's like you get to a certain point and it's like, okay, now this happens, then this happens, then this happens. It's like there's like big chunky things. Like each chapter is like its own little story.
Yes, absolutely. So looking forward to chapter 14. Before we close out, do you have a review for us?
I sure do, Ben. We have a review here from DCGXD. That's at least how it copied over.
Love it. Okay. Hello.
They said, the coziness is the best. I feel like I'm sitting down at a fireplace with my father reading Harry Potter. The Carlin brothers are not only experts on HP, but they go out of their way to explain more details that you've missed previously when you read the books. Just give it 1 minute and you'll be hooked.
Oh.
So thank you so much.
That's so cool. I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, no, that's such a sweet review. Well,
It's very much the vibe we're going for.
That is absolutely. At one point in time, we literally debated on how to possibly
Yeah, how
incorporate
cool-
a fireplace into our visual set if you're
Yeah.
watching on YouTube or listening.
Which, by the way,
elsewhere.
thank you for watching on YouTube. I have been so impressed with those numbers. So if you are, if you want to throw us a subscriber thing, that would be amazing. Or just hit that bell.
Absolutely,
You know?
yeah, of course. Be sure to be the first in the know whenever a new episode drops.
I would love it, you guys, if we could put a silver play button on the set behind
my
us.
gosh,
Okay,
I
look, because we
know.
have an empty frame right over there behind Ben. I don't know if you can tell exactly what that is from your vantage point, but we could put the button in there.
We could put the button in there.
That's where we could put it.
The campaign for 100K.
There we go.
Yeah.
So just, if you want to help us out, even maybe if you're just listening on audio and you're like, let me just go into YouTube real quick and I'll just do that and we'll see if we can get the button. That would be super fun.
Yes,
We're
it
still a ways off, but I think we can get there.
Yeah, it is its own YouTube channel, so
Yeah.
Through the Griffin Door. If you want to go check it out, we would super appreciate it. But
Yeah.
otherwise, until next time, bye.
Oh, whoa. Excuse me.
Sorry.
Jeez, man.
My
I
bad.
believe we end the episodes differently around here.
That's my bad. It's been a minute. Okay.
It's all right.
Otherwise.
Join us next time through the Griffin Door.
Totally nailed it. Well done.
Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Ben Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands, dust off your broomsticks, and join us as we unlock the secrets behind Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 14, Norbert, the Norwegian Ridgeback.
Oh, man.
Norbert.
I'm going to get chapter art out of the way first because
Dude,
it's
I
great.
agree. This I wrote right next to it. I was like 10 out of 10. This chapter art slaps, man.
It does. And honestly, this is so we talked about this a little bit in the last chapter where it's like it feels like it's the wrong title for the chapter. Like you could have just called it Sorcerer's Stone or Snape's, what did I call it? Snape's
Detour.
Snape's Detour.
Yeah.
Like it just I literally I remember ending last week's episode and saying like, I would just go with Snape's Detour. And then I was like, no, Sorcerer's Stone. That was the right answer. We just had a whole conversation about it and then I said the wrong name. And so I was like, anyway, so wanted to backtrack from last week's episode and make that small correction there. But yeah, no, this is like one of those examples of this chapter is like a side quest.
It is such a side quest chapter. It is such a like there needs to be a reason for Harry to end up in the forest to confront Voldemort and talk to Firenze to tell him that it was Voldemort, so that Harry realizes that that Snape is not in it for himself, but actually it's way worse than he thought.
Yes, exactly. There's like a lot of like very work backwardsy kind of writing related things that I think you can observe happening. Like this whole chapter, for example, is almost like clearly the outline of the whole story had been written, and it almost feels like the Norbert chapter was like one big thing that allowed a couple of other things, important vital details, to fall where they needed to fall.
Yes.
So specifically Malfoy discovering that they're going to be out in the middle of the night.
The absolute, this is what, I kept writing it down in this chapter, like, Malfoy needs to get a life. Like, he is being such a bother in this chapter.
He's a plot device more than a character.
He is such a plot device in this, specifically in this chapter. And then at the same time, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are being like more careless than ever. Like, they're so sloppy this chapter.
They are indeed. A little uncharacteristically. There's another little detail that I'm going to point out that also feels rather uncharacteristic of one of our Golden Trio members. So, without any further ado, we can dive in proper to the discussion of Norbert the Norwegian Ridgeback. Which again, so the big thing for me is sort of like coming into this chapter. There's a scene where I think Ron is the one in particular who has been going and spending time with Hagrid, specifically like helping him to feed Norbert, which lands him with a bite to the hand. And the fact that Ron is there of all people, it's like I feel like in Prisoner of Azkaban we see like Hermione be extremely involved with like Buckbeak's trial and stuff like that. This, I'm like, it feels odd that it's Ron in particular, but it's almost like in order to find a way for Malfoy to discover where they're going to be and when, you need a situation that would allow Ron to end up in the hospital wing so that Draco could go and make fun of him, borrow the book, and inside of the book is the information that tells them they're going to be out in the middle of the night, all of which needs to happen so that detention can take place in the Forbidden Forest, where Firenze could just give a massive
It is so much.
dump.
And it's like the amount, it's like the amount of like hoops that have to be jumped through for Malfoy to then like, it's like he, like, who even goes up there? He like even, it doesn't even make sense. It's like Malfoy lies about needing to borrow a book, but then just takes a book anyway. Like, as if to follow through on the lie, I guess.
Right. Like Ron could just be like, no, I'm not giving
you a book. I'd like, why does he like,
Malfoy's like, no, I'm doing a bit here, okay?
Look, I lied to get in here so I could come bully you, okay? You got to let me take the book.
Do you have a book with extremely vital information possibly tucked into the pages?
Like, why would you be keeping it in the book? Why'd you write it down? I guess they'll write it down. Even the plan for Charlie, like Charlie's plan is like, could you meet on top of the tallest tower? It's like, what they needed to write back was, how about you meet us at Hagrid's hut? Like, why add this needless complication? And then, even then, like, it baffles me that Hagrid lets the 3 first years handle this for him.
Oh my gosh.
Like, he does all of the wrongdoing here, and like Harry, Ron, and Hermione are like, dude, you got to get rid of this thing. And he's like, yeah, I guess you're right. I probably do. It is illegal. You guys just want to carry it up to the tower for and it ends up just being Harry and Hermione, and they, in the middle of the night, carrying a dragon, have to
a dragon that is apparently big enough that when it swipes its tail inside of Hagrid's hut, the windows shake.
Yes, this is a house-shaking sized baby dragon now that the 2 of them, not even 3 of them, have to get underneath the invisibility cloak, carry it, as far as I'm concerned, up the hill to the castle, and then up to the tallest tower, completely unnoticed by anybody, like, at all. And it's like, Hagrid, why can't Hagrid just carry it up there?
Oh, I have no idea. Yeah.
Like, what? Like, why aren't they like, Hagrid, great news. We've arranged for Charlie to meet you at the top of the tower.
Right, yes.
Look, here's what we'll do. You can borrow the cloak and put it over the crate. How about that? Then you'll just be taking, there's no, like, it's not suspicious for Hagrid to just be in the castle.
He's the keeper of keys.
Keeper of keys, like, I'm here checking on Fluffy. There you go. Lie accomplished.
Yeah, easy,
what are you
easy.
doing with a monster? Dumbledore asked me to put this with the stone. Like, there's so many ways they get around this. And it's like that Hagrid ends up with the dragon. And then I guess Norbert is also the reason that Quirrell and Voldemort figure out how to get past Fluffy. So that's another big plot element at play here,
right?
That we don't quite know about yet.
We don't quite know about yet, but no, I know. I literally
gosh.
there's one sentence in particular that I found to just be properly absurd, and forgive me because it's on the second to last page of the chapter.
Sure.
But it's exactly as you described. So Harry and Hermione by themselves, without Ron, who's in the hospital wings for convenient purposes, so that Draco can get in trouble. Like by themselves, are going to have to carry this giant dragon, which otherwise, for all intents and purposes, I have to imagine is not happy about being in the crate.
I know.
And is actively going to be blowing fire at them or
what kind
biting
of fireproof crate do they have here?
I don't know.
Also, not for nothing, Ron gets bit on the hand when we know for a fact that one of the requirements for being a first year is gloves, dragon hide glove or similar.
Or
it's
similar.
You absolutely have dragon hide gloves, and if ever there was an occasion to be wearing them,
especially because Hagrid will go on to be the not the defense of the dark arts teacher, the
care of magical creatures
teacher. It's like, come on, Hagrid, you're like almost a professor here. Like you need to be guiding Ron on, because that's the thing about Hagrid too that I feel like is underdone in this particular chapter. It's like Hagrid actually is good and tender with animals and creatures and beasts and stuff like that. And this is like one of those where it's like, Hagrid, how are you being so blinded by all of this type of stuff that you're making such bad decisions?
Also, like Ron's down there, like Ron is down there helping Hagrid feed the dragon. It's like, why does he need help? What is Ron doing that Hagrid can't do by himself?
Jay, he's administering the proper blend of brandy and chicken blood.
Okay, this chapter is so absurd. It is the most absurd chapter in the whole book by far.
Jay, I haven't even gotten to my highlighted line here, which is this sentence is the most absurd sentence in the most absurd chapter.
Go ahead.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Again, Harry and Hermione carrying a dragon up to the tallest tower from Hagrid's hut. This is the quote. How they managed to get the crate back up to the castle, they never knew.
Yeah, right. It's like
they never knew. The ones who did it never knew how they did it.
There's some they did it. So next,
it's just like it quite literally is one of these things where it's like I don't know how to explain how they did it. They just did it.
The fact they don't even know how they did it. The fact is, it's like there's no way these two 11-year-olds carried a house dragon up to the castle. That's the thing. They carry it too. When they're like, the one signature known spell we know they could do is make stuff float.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, Wingardium Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa. Look, everyone, Miss Grange just done it.
It actually, it feels like a level in a video game, quite frankly, which is that you, the character, have the crate covered in the invisibility cloak. So nobody can see what you're moving. So you have to Wingardium Leviosa, the crate, lifted in the air, and then you're walking through the halls of Hogwarts and having to get past like other students and Filch, and like occasionally like the dragon will breathe fire and you have to make sure you're not near anybody during that. Like it feels like a game where it's sort of like, okay, set the dragon down for a second, wait for Peeves to pass. Okay, dragon's back up, lifted, continue.
Yeah, I mean 1000% this level exists in the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone computer game for Windows 95.
Is this in fact a task? Am I just describing a real thing?
It is a real thing. I'm not sure about the like moving the crate around or anything, but like there is the level where you're under the invisibility cloak and have to avoid like Filch and Peeves and Mrs. Norris and take some roundabout way through the castle and like do like the spy game, like wait for them to turn around and sneak past and because even though you're invisible, of course they can see you with lanterns and stuff.
Right. Well, I'm very much imagining. I played a lot of Breath of the Wild, and there's like one ability that you Link have to like pick up objects and sort of like swiggle them around when you're doing the puzzles and stuff like that. So that's very much what I'm picturing is sort of like the weird kind of like video game joystick mechanics that are required to sort of use both joysticks at the same time to sort of navigate the up, down, left, right, moving forward, back type of positioning and stuff like that. Yeah, I could totally see it. I could totally see it. So anyway, from there, we've mostly covered Norbert. So
We've
far.
mostly covered Norbert. Yeah, we haven't like normally we just sort of like go down the paragraphs and talk about stuff we highlighted. So we can try and do that. I can't promise I'm not going to get sidetracked again. But so one of the things I found interesting on the first page that they're concerned that like Quirrell is going to crack and give Snape the information he needs to steal the stone. But and so as a result, they start being like extra nice to Quirrell, which I think is so funny. It says, whenever Harry passed Quirrell these days, he gave him an encouraging sort of smile, and Ron had started telling people off for laughing at Quirrell's stutter. And it's like, it's so funny because like they're sort of defending Voldemort without knowing it.
I know. Yeah, it's a little bit hilarious that they've taken the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and this is I mean, it goes back to that conversation between Snape and Quirrell in the woods where it's just so like. Snape could have just said so many other words that would have made his allegiance any clearer.
Yes.
And instead, it's just so muddled to the point where quite literally they're talking to the actual culprit involved and they walk away thinking he's the victim.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I saw just a fantastic TikTok the other day about like how Sirius Black is the worst communicator ever.
Okay.
Like the TikTok was saying that people complain that Sirius didn't get a fair trial and whatever, and it's like it doesn't matter because there's no way that Sirius goes to trial and answers the questions adequately. Like it's like, were you the Potter's secret keeper? It's like, I may as well have been. It's like, no, just say no. The answer was no.
No. Yeah. Right.
Did you kill those people? Lock me up.
I would have died for my friends.
It's like, okay, I heard yes,
but they died. Where do we land on your position?
Yeah. It's like, I may as well have killed them. It's like, could you just say,
be less cryptic.
Be less cryptic.
Be less cryptic
for one hot second
Take a
here.
Deep breath. There's a way we can get you out of this. But of course, nobody's coaching Sirius in this.
Yeah, there's like no lawyers in the wizarding world, and they like desperately need them.
They absolutely do.
Like even the judges, like there's the scene in Order of the Phoenix where like they don't even know like what the rules are. They're like, wait, can Squib see Dementors? Do we know about this? We'll check that later. We're gonna dole out some justice right now.
Right now, yeah. I was like, we'll remember it for next time. We'll be sure.
Yeah, it's
about
like
what actually
good thing
happened.
Dumbledore showed up to point out all those loopholes, which is just basically all the loopholes which are super obvious to everyone reading.
Yeah.
Much less someone trained in magical law. Anyway, not the point. Not the point.
We get all of Dumbledore's 5 names though, so there's that.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so they're defending whatever Voldemort there, which is kind of funny because they just don't get it. I think there's a line here that says, "You realize they're worried about studying for exams," and Hermione says, "You realize we need to pass these exams to get into the second year." And it's like that is interesting because every description you ever get of Crabbe and Goyle is that they are like about as smart as a bag of socks.
I think you're giving them too much credit.
I know. But they advance not just past first year, but every year. Every single year they pass and manage to get to the next year. Like these exams are either like just way easier than Hermione would ever let you believe, or Crabbe and Goyle are not given enough credit.
Oh, yes. At bare minimum, by the time Half-Blood Prince rolls around, they should be 4th years.
Yes,
right. It's just like there's no way that they pass their OWLs.
Yeah.
No, I know. This is like one of those things where it's like they Crabbe and Goyle are painted as so inexplicably incompetent. Like even from like Malfoy's perspective, it seems like they are nothing more than just like brute strength.
Yeah.
But it's like they must be a little bit more capable than anybody's ever telling us.
Like or else all I can imagine is that like the day before the exams, Snape comes into the common room and is like, "Crabbe, Goyle, other students who don't know what they're doing, here are literally the answers to the quests, okay? You're going to have to make a pineapple tap dance. Here's the incantation. Crabbe, do it. Right, good. Just point to the wand and say this. Good, that'll pass. That's good.
It jiggled a bit.
It jiggled a bit. You're good. You'll make it to next year.
No, the thing I wanted to bring up, because I feel like I brought this up a couple of times earlier on in the series, but I actually highlighted the exact same sentence that you just said. So you realize we need to pass these exams to get in the second year. They're very important. I should have started studying a month ago. This once again, I think is actually this is well done, because this is like the reverberations of how bad life is with the Dursleys, that I feel like over and over again, this idea of like expulsion or failing out or not being being able to return to Hogwarts is constantly this like otherwise threat
Yeah.
that is like facing Harry.
Right.
And you're like I can't have Harry go back and live with the Dursleys.
Right.
Like you, the reader, it's like, this is like a multi-book series. Surely he keeps going back to school. But
Yeah.
like the constant like worry or concern, because it'll even take place literally in Chamber of Secrets as we get into like the next year with like crashing into the Whomping Willow, where it's like, there we go. We're on a one-way ticket.
That's
back home
it.
again.
Harry is yeah, you're right. The threat of expulsion feels like it's always about like 3 inches away from Harry.
Yes, yeah. It's like he like flirts with the line way, way, way too much. But the reason that you're so concerned for him is because of the life you would have to go back to if you were kicked out. So I do think, like, as far as establishing like life with the Dursleys as being so much worse than anything Harry's facing death at school sometimes, but somehow it still feels like going back and living with them seems worse.
Yes, it kind of, yeah, I mean, it's just straight up abusive. What I think is interesting is that apparently one of the things they need to study for the first year exams is what are the 12 uses of dragon's blood.
Yes.
Which
yes.
seems to me like if you'd been learning about that throughout the year, because probably it wasn't like one day, here's all 12 uses.
Right.
Feels like today we're covering use number 1 or whatever.
Right.
Anyway.
I follow your logic.
Yeah, you follow my logic?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. That's basically how it goes. It feels like that might have sparked some memory from the Chocolate Frog card, which also mentions Dumbledore's fantastic discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood.
You're absolutely correct. Yes. Do you have the 12 uses?
Well, so that was what I was wondering. I was like, you know what? They constantly
reference this,
reference that there are 12, and I'm like, I don't think they ever say what they are in the books. And indeed, at best, there is one confirmed use in the books, if not like maybe like one in 1/4.
Okay.
But it almost feels like more of an. I'll go through them. Okay. I looked this up. There are 3 apparent known named uses.
Okay.
But none of them are in the books. 2 of them are like in interviews. One with the author. One with the screenwriter Steve Clove.
Yeah.
And then one was like God, I can't remember the last one, but none of them are like official.
Is
official
one of them
things.
oven cleaner?
One of them was oven cleaner.
Okay, that's one of the ones I feel like I knew that one.
But which honestly, so it says spot remover, a cure for verruca, and the 12th use was as an oven cleaner, which also seems like spot remover.
It kind of does.
Me.
Yeah. It seems like for this to be one of Dumbledore's like chief accolades, it seems like a lot of what it's doing is sort of like cleaning solution.
Cleaning solution. Yeah. Now that said, in Order of the Phoenix, after Hagrid comes back after he comes back from the Giants, they go to his hut and he's holding up a bloody dragon stake to his face to help deal with the wounds. So the fact that it is a bloody dragon stake kind of makes it sound like one of the uses of dragon's blood might be to like help with swelling on wounds.
Like a salve?
Yeah, like a salve or something like that.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's there. And then the only other time we actually see it be used to any effectiveness is when Slughorn uses it to disguise the room he's destroyed, as if someone has been horribly bloody murdered.
Yeah, that's kind of a curious thing too, because it makes you wonder whether or not, and we're jumping way ahead.
Yes,
at this point,
we are.
But it makes you wonder whether or not dragon's blood has similar properties to human blood for some reason.
I know, but I love the idea that one of the 12 uses of dragon's blood is as fake human blood.
Yes,
looks like other blood.
Looks like other blood, like hard to discern from other kinds of blood.
This is one of the uses.
Right. It's
not magical use in any way.
Right. Yeah, and then it always does make me feel a little bit bad because I think Slughorn's blood gets a little dusty in the cleanup there.
Oh yeah, right.
That's just too bad.
Man.
Got dust all in my blood.
Got dusty blood.
Dusty blood.
Dear. Not so pure blood now, is it?
That's pretty good.
There you go. Thank you.
Do you feel like there's any like foreshadowing or anything? I mean, the fact that we get dragon's blood of all things, we haven't really heard reference to the 12 uses ever since the Chocolate Frog card, specifically to the tune of this being a very dragon-centric chapter.
I know you'd think like, oh, well, maybe they can use the blood or something, but
maybe it's just to be like, hey, dragons are a thing in this world. As a gentle reminder.
That is sort of the thing. They kind of like point out that there are, in fact, wild dragons in Great Britain, and common Welsh greens, and Hebridean blacks, aka Hogwarts Castle, former shape.
Yes, this is like one of those things where I refuse to go and read the comments on the video that we made where we suggested that Hogwarts Castle was a previous gigantic Hebridean black hiding in the foothills of Scotland.
Yes.
Because I don't want to see people contesting it, which I feel like they probably are.
We just need like T-shirts or something for this show, that because this is where we came up with that theory, was on the show.
I know, yeah, on the fly, because of the Caput Draconis.
Caput Draconis, head of the dragon, and then the Hogwarts motto. So we just need shirts that just said like Hogwarts was a dragon.
Hogwarts was a dragon.
Yeah, and it's like if you know, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yes.
No, that's a good one. I also highlighted, speaking of dragons, all of the various books that Hagrid checks out of the library, which includes Dragon Species of Great Britain and Ireland, From Egg to Inferno, A Dragon Keeper's Guide, which is 3 different books. But this is like one of those trivia questions where it's like, which of these books did Hagrid not check out? During Harry's first year when tending to Norbert. Apparently, it's inside of these books where he learns enough information to know that they again require that healthy blend of brandy and chicken blood, which is a kind of
those are the books he did not check out.
Oh, you're right. You're right. There's the ones that he didn't check out. Yeah. It was no, let's see here. What is the name of the book he actually ends up getting? Gosh, we just read it.
Yeah, it's a little bit later, I think, because they haven't quite gotten there. It's Dragon Breeding for Pleasure and Profit.
For Pleasure and Profit.
Yeah, that's the one he landed on.
Yeah.
For pleasure. And so does that mean, that almost sounds like he was planning on selling Norbert.
Unless it was just for fun.
For pleasure and profit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could be excluding the for-profit part. I mean, he ends up giving it away. So for freezies.
For freezies, I know. Like, come on, dude. At least sell it to these Romanians.
Right. Also, on the note of on dragons, and on the note of dragon breeding in particular, it's again Ron who sort of uncharacteristically has a little dragon factoid to drop on us, because it feels like a Hermione quote that is just like then given to Ron, but it says, "But it's against our laws," said Ron. "Dragon breeding was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709.
It does seem like. It seems like later on in the story, he would say maybe something to that effect, but he'd be like, it was outlawed by the Warlocks Convention of 1709 or something or whatever. You know, like he would like have like a little misnomer there at the end. Like, I don't really know the exact date, but like it's known. It's known.
It's known. This one actually I think kind of stood out to me a little bit too, because as has 2 individuals who would love at some point in time to be involved with writing lore that goes much further back in the wizarding world.
Yeah.
Timeline. The thing that stands out to me is like if the Warlocks Convention of 1709 is such common knowledge that Ron is able to drop it in this sort of like secondhand regard, like just sort of like yes, of course, like this thing, like it almost to me reads sort of like, oh, like America gained independence on July 4th, 1776. Like, like it's a quote that like anybody who has lived in the country would know this information. Like,
right.
It's iconic and important enough.
Like what else happened at this Warlock convention?
Well, what else happened, or else how big or important were dragons to wizarding culture prior to 1709?
That's true.
To where this was like a really big deal.
Yeah, so they were probably huge, like castle sized or something.
Like almost castle sized. I mean, like you literally almost have to wonder if at some point in time, like dragons were like almost like maybe like some people were successfully taming them in some capacity in a similar like vein to like Voldemort attempting to get like the giants or the Acromantula,
right,
on his side.
Well,
like,
there almost must have been, because like there are these books about it.
True.
Like, according to Ron, you can't tame them, but like there must have been enough success to at least write the books.
I wonder if that is why inside of the like when Hagrid is talking about it, he specifically says like books are a bit outdated, which of course they would be if he's reading a book about
breeding. If it's been outlawed since 1709,
we're talking
it must be at least that old.
Yeah, like almost 300 years.
Wow.
Like,
it's impressive that it's still around.
It is very impressive that it's still around. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting.
All right. That's it. That's pretty, I like that headcanon that the book he checks out is 300 years old. Cause otherwise it's like just the very act of printing this book is like promoting illegal activity.
Yeah, okay, so the exact line says, got this out of the library, dragon breeding for pleasure and profit. It's a bit out of date, of course, but it's all in here. Like, of course it's out. Well, it's not even that it's any less accurate than it was when it was written. It's just the book is extremely old.
Yeah.
But before we get there, though, so we go on down to Hagrid's hut where it's stifling hot inside for such a warm day. Hagrid made them tea and offered them stoat sandwiches, which they refused. Did you look up stoat sandwiches?
I looked up what stoats were.
Yeah, they're like a weasel.
They're like little ferrets or something.
Yeah. So it's like apparently these were quite in vogue at some point in time, but they are like some version of like rodent sandwiches is sort of like what
I mean. That's sort of what I gleaned from it. Anyway,
contextually, you picked up you understood stoat to be
some sort of like vermin.
Wow, I'm genuinely impressed. I was like, what is a stoat sandwich?
Well, just because Hagrid almost like famously always serves them bad food.
He does.
And so it's sort of like, of course, I got stoat sandwiches. The thing is, there is this weird recurring thing in this chapter specifically where where is Hagrid getting all the stoats for these sandwiches?
Right.
But then later in the chapter, it is revealed that what you're supposed to be feeding Norbert is a bucket o' brandy mixed with chicken blood every half hour. And then later, when he gets bigger, he is eating rats by the crate. And I'm like, first thing, the idea is hilarious to me. It's like, where? Because it means that he's feeding him rats by the crate, which means Hagrid has a way of getting many crates of dead rats. Where is he getting the crates of dead rats?
Maybe he's trapping for them out in the Forbidden Forest.
But he'd have to be trapping so many rats.
This is true. I don't know. Honestly, this is like
also
one of those...
the chicken blood. It's not like the way it is said is that there's feathers everywhere, which makes it sound like Hagrid is harvesting the chicken blood himself. He's not like purchasing bottled chicken blood ahead of time.
Yeah, that's my interpretation as
okay,
well.
right, he's getting
Hagrid's
the chicken blood.
almost certainly, taking out some chickens in the process.
I mean, how many chickens are going down for Norbert?
I don't know.
Because what's funny is that the very next year, Hagrid's also bursting in, and he's like, someone's been killing my roosters. And I'm like, wow, you know what? Given your own activity last year, I'm kind of thinking maybe it's you.
Yeah,
you know?
No.
Or like, you got another dragon down there, dude?
It feels like Hagrid. Hagrid, stick with me now. It might be you.
Last year, you murdered no less than 50 chickens to feed to your illegal dragon. Okay, not for nothing, but there's a giant creature said to be roaming the school, and now there's a bunch of dead chickens again. So you were caught last time too.
This is one of those things. So I feel like we were chatting with some other friends recently who are fans of the series and everything, and I was expressing my own personal love for Hagrid, and I felt like there were a lot of people that almost sort of were like, are you sure you like Hagrid? And I was like, of course I like Hagrid. He's like the best. He's so great.
Yeah.
And I feel like as I was reading this chapter, I was like, okay, so Hagrid has his faults. There are occasionally some moments.
There's some moments. Well, there's this so they're what they're doing down at Hagrid's hut to begin with. They're not actually there for the dragon egg. He's just asked them to come talk to him about the Sorcerer's Stone down there instead of in the library.
True.
And Hermione, the 11-year-old whiz kid over here, just wheedles information out of him like that. Basically right away. At the end of this page, it says, "Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore," said Hagrid proudly, and Harry says, "Well, that's something." He's like, I guess that's good enough. Hagrid would never tell anyone else something that he wasn't supposed to, as if he didn't just reveal all sorts of information to the three of them at the simplest prodding by Hermione ever.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Hermione, says Hermione in a warm, flattering voice. So it is kind of interesting that Hagrid must be so infrequently on the receiving end of such glowing admiration.
Sure.
That he's sort of he can't quite help but just sort of eat up the moment.
I guess I'll tell you who's guarding the stone.
Once again, when it kind of comes back to Dumbledore's big plan, there's always that sentiment that Dumbledore, of course, trusts Hagrid above all else. And this is one of those things where it's this might be one of those situations where Dumbledore just knows Hagrid so through and through that he trusts that Hagrid will mess up in the exact way that he wants him to, so that Harry will learn what he needs to know about how to...
I trust Hagrid we'll mess up.
Yes. That's what I mean by I trust Hagrid. It's like I know exactly what Hagrid is always going to do, always, and it works out well in my favor.
I will. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say before we get to the line that you just mentioned there, though, we do get a line because we talked about this a little bit in last week's episode about whether or not Snape might know all of the other obstacles.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So Hagrid says, number 1, I don't know myself. Number 2, you know too much already. I wouldn't tell you if I could. The stone's here for a reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts. So that sort of suggests to me, because Hagrid is also one of the professors. Well, I guess he's not a professor.
Not a professor yet.
He's one of staff who is involved with protecting the stone. And he doesn't know what the other teachers did.
Right.
So I think it does stand to reason that the conversation that Snape was having with Quirrell, that the information it seems like he's trying to get out, that kind of like hocus pocus line, is some version of like, how do I get past your challenge? Yeah.
Yes. I also, his next sentence is, beats me how you even know about Fluffy. And I'm like, well, that part's pretty easy. What do you mean, how do you know? We opened the wrong door.
It's like, how else do you guess three-headed dog?
Yeah, right?
Right. Anyway. Okay, so the bucket of brandy thing I thought was kind of interesting, because the other thing that comes up eventually is that when Madame Maxine arrives in Goblet of Fire, does she have a Braxton? Is that what pulls her carriage?
I want to say it is a Braxton, yeah.
Okay. Well, what is it? Man, now my brain is like, I feel like it's reaching for some other name and I can't remember what it is.
Large winged horses.
Large winged horses, indeed. And they only drink single malt whiskey, I believe.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is sort of curious that this is the second occasion where a magical beast requires alcohol as part of its sustenance, which I was like, I wonder if that's more common across the board. And it's like I want to know if like inside of other mythology outside of even like just the Harry Potter lore itself, if this might be a thing that might possibly be believed, that like part of like what makes these beasts so dangerous is that they drink alcohol or something.
Oh, right.
Like that,
like they need alcohol, but of course they're drinking tons of it, so they're just sort of like a little wild.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Like maybe that's supposed to contribute to the lack of predictability of what these things are. I'm not totally sure though, but I that stood out to me. I literally underlined bucket of brandy and just wrote
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that this is like a brand new, and also like you're supposed to feed them that, but like in the wild, how would like mother dragons be providing that to their young?
Oh, I know. Yeah, I mean, it must assume in some capacity that whatever or however mother dragons feed their baby dragons, the solution is like from a nutritional standpoint, similar to these ingredients.
Got it. Dragon's milk is alcoholic. Got it.
Yeah. You read between the lines.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. You nailed it. Anyway, so as we turn to the next page, though, there's another little interesting tidbit, which is that Hagrid has basically gone from hiding the dragon from anybody to actively sending Harry a note that says it's hatching.
Yeah.
So he's sort of like, well, as long as you know, I'd love for you to be a part of this special day.
Get down there.
Go and be involved.
Of course, naturally, as they're talking about going down there, Malfoy's only a few feet away and it's stopped dead to listen because he has nothing better to do.
Come on.
Ever.
Malfoy.
I literally just wrote, dude. Man, go do something else. You got to get like a hobby or something. Then there's this like they talk about how they're going to go see it, and they're arguing about whether or not they're going to go see it, and eventually they agree that they'll go down to Hagrid's during morning break, and it's like it's such an obvious solution. I'm not sure why they ever had to argue about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like the big question is, it's like, well, are we going to go now and miss class, or could we go immediately after during morning break?
Yeah,
it's like morning break should be fine.
It sounds good. Yeah. Come on, guys.
They make it in time. I do love the description of a freshly hatched Norwegian Ridgeback.
Like a crumpled black umbrella.
A crumpled black umbrella. It's like I don't know why, but I'm like, I can see that.
Because I guess the wings are so spiny, but I like that the word umbrella is used because that's also like Hagrid's wand.
That's
and it's
true.
like Hagrid's dragon. It kind of feels like that works. That kind of makes his wand a little more dragony.
How would you describe Hagrid? He's kind of like umbrella-ish.
Yeah, you know.
You know umbrellas. He's like
Hagrid.
That's Hagrid.
Yeah,
They're one and the same. saying. Yep. And then when the little baby Norbert sneezes, a couple of sparks flew out of its snout. So it's a little bit adorable at first, which Hagrid immediately picks up on and says, "Isn't he beautiful?"
Ah. I love how it is eventually revealed that Norbert is a female dragon, and that Hagrid has this book and doesn't like immediately like check whether it's male or female.
It's another one of those moments where it's like you want to be giving Hagrid the benefit of the doubt, like that he knows what he's talking about when it comes to magical beasts, and it feels like it's kind of like a touch and go type of thing. Like sometimes it seems like he's like dead on the mark and he knows like a ton of information.
Yeah,
and then others it's sort of like, Hagrid, how do you miss that?
Yeah.
You know, that one feels like it should be within your range.
Yep.
Although I guess to be fair, nobody's supposed to have bred one for 300 years.
I guess so.
There's that.
Naturally, not seconds after the dragon has been hatched, they notice that Malfoy had seen the dragon through the window because, again, he has nothing better to do.
Yep.
Like, it's just convenient that he didn't have class during morning break, and he's like, I'm going to spend my morning break. I'm going to head down to Hagrid's to see whether or not that Potter kid's down there doing something for something. How many things throughout the year did Malfoy go and eavesdrop where nothing interesting was said? I know, exactly.
It's just like,
when we get this, like, this supposed Harry Potter TV show that's coming out where they're just redoing the books, but as a TV show, there needs to be, like, just a subplot where Malfoy's just, like, hiding behind stuff all the time.
Yes.
Like, you guys talking about something?
Like his overall objective, like if you get to follow just Draco's character, like independent from everybody, it almost needs to be the case that for some reason Draco has extreme motivation to be like riding their tail always.
Yeah.
So he's just it's almost just sort of like, hey, are you going to potions? It's like, nah, Potter's going to be in defense against the dark arts, so I'll probably just stand at the door and listen.
Exactly. Like, I gotta, I'm always eavesdropping, always collecting information. You never know when something's gonna come in handy.
Right. And it's certainly not going to happen in class.
Handy for what, Draco?
What. Yeah. Right. What are you trying to accomplish here?
What are you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, that's all right. But so
also, not only does Malfoy see it, he does not do anything about it. Like, there's this like, he's got him. He's got him.
Right.
He's there. He's got the information. Like, he does nothing with it. He doesn't even tell Lucius about it.
Yep. No, yeah. I know. And that was literally like rereading this. It was sort of like I'm like literally forgetting about the whole scene in the hospital wing where Draco goes up to like taunt Ron, and ends up getting his book with all the necessary vital bits to figure out how to go and find them in the middle of the night, which again, earlier in this exact same book, there is the midnight duel. Like he was supposed to confront them in the middle of the night once already and didn't. And this time he's apparently all about it. He's like, I'm not missing my chance again.
Exactly. Yeah. This time I'm actually going to go, like, instead of tipping someone off that they're going to be there like he did last time, he's like, I need to personally oversee. But like, what's he going to do? Like, just be out there and catch them, but then he'll also be out of bed, which is exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be better off just tipping someone off again.
Doing the exact same play.
Just try the same plan.
Which on some level feels like maybe because McGonagall's the one who catches him.
Right.
So it does.
One of the rare times she's just out of bed
in the middle
patrolling
of the
corridors.
Right,
yeah.
Right. Which must be a duty. It has to be a duty.
Yeah. Like, it must just like, you're weak.
Yeah. To be out there making sure that everybody's being up to the right amount of good. Let's see here. So then you start to run into the issue of what do we do? And once again, we get a lot more Charlie than we tend to get for the rest of the series, where Ron basically comes up with the idea like, hey, maybe Charlie can take this dragon. Like, how hard could that be? And I do feel like Hagrid agreeing to this feels slightly out of character for Hagrid. Like, he's almost immediately like, okay, if we have to, you know, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know why. I mean, it seems like maybe he could have just like, fought back a little bit harder or whatever. So then they end up, writing Charlie a letter where they get back. And I actually really like the letter from Charlie. It feels just so like cordial and maybe slightly out of character amongst the rest of like the Weasley brothers.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, dear Ron, how are you? Thanks for the letter. I'd be glad to take the Norwegian Ridgeback. Let me help you present a plan. Write back to me as soon as possible. Love, Charlie.
Right.
And I was like,
what a good brother.
I was like, wow. Charlie seems like a good dude.
I know, because they're like pretty far apart, like age-wise. So it's just like very much like getting it from your much younger brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'll help you out of a jam, little bro.
I can do that.
I can do that. Look at this, guys. Yeah, I agree. Like his request, I do. It does. Like also so much of it, like just relies on trust, because like Charlie's basically gonna have to start like arranging this before he even gets the send back. It seems like, you know, it's like, can you get them up to the tallest tower at midnight on Saturday? And it's like, okay, I guess we'll send the letter back and just hope that you get it and see you there.
Right. Yes. Yeah. No, it definitely seems like, it always reminds me of like pre-cell phone days. So which, I remember like we lived in that era. Like we didn't grow up like as like little kids with our parents having cell phones or anything.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, at least. And so, I mean, it is like a different kind of communication. If you were to even go back to like telephones where you couldn't even be like, hey, okay, meet at 6. Okay, good. See you then. Like, this is like placing a letter in the mail, sending it to them. They receive it like about a week later, where they respond and agree to meet you at 6 o'clock on like the 21st.
Right.
It's like there's such little follow up. Like I feel like before I leave my house to go meet somebody for dinner plans at 6, I'll usually send them a text at like 5:15 and be like, hey, we still on for 6? Like,
I feel like, and it's like one of those things where it's like, does the fact that we are able to communicate so much more directly all of the time mean that you should follow up so much more? Like, because the opportunity, like, you're right. Like if I said, okay, we're going to meet at 6 on Saturday, and then we just left work and like that was the next time we were going to see each other and weren't going to communicate, like, if you had no way to get in touch with me, you just have to show up.
You would just have to show up.
Yeah.
Your commitment to being there seems
is much greater.
Yes,
whereas like you can commit to 6 o'clock on Saturday now and just know that like, you know, if something comes up, so I'll just like cancel because I can just text them like as late as like 15 minutes ahead of time.
Yeah, to be like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it. It's like, okay, thanks for letting me know.
Right, exactly. And like that would seem perfectly adequate, but you're right. Yeah, so they have to really rely on a lot of trust. I was reading it, I'm like, it is like such a missed opportunity to just meet Charlie in this chapter.
True.
Like, you know, he sends the letter back, but like he isn't coming, just his friends are. It's like, why the decision not to have Charlie be there? You know,
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
I know.
It's just right. Like it does feel like it does feel like it also just doesn't seem like it needs to be on the tallest tower. Like,
it's like actually we're just gonna keep it at Hagrid's hut. Is really big. You know about dragons, right? You study them.
Do you think? Is there anything even like that we would need to question about the fact that like Charlie's friends are just simply able to fly right up to Hogwarts?
Oh, I thought about that. Like they like. I mean, because. Well, so I was thinking about in Prisoner of Azkaban where it's like, oh yeah, getting to Hogwarts very difficult.
Yes.
But like in that case, they do have the Dementors, so I don't think in like you could just fly up during year 3 or something
without the Dementors basically sensing and then pursuing.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, even in this book, like Voldemort has just entered the castle just by walking in, basically.
No, I know. This is like it's basically like everything Draco goes through in Half-Blood Prince in order to be able to like gain access. It's like it just doesn't seem like it would have been that difficult.
Well, by the time we get to Half-Blood Prince, though, like Voldemort is known to be back, so the security is a lot higher.
A lot higher. That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point. Okay. Yeah, that was one of the things where I was like, could you just fly? And then I was like, I don't really see what would stop you from simply flying right up to it.
Yeah, but like Half-Blood Prince again, when Harry and Dumbledore are going up to see the Dark Mark, like Dumbledore is like murmuring a bunch of spells and like undoing a bunch of protective enchantments around the castle so that they can fly to it.
That's a good point. Yeah. So it must be the case that those enchantments are new by the time Half-Blood Prince rolls around. So maybe security is a little bit like more relaxed, given the fact that it's been a decade since Voldemort's fallen.
Yeah.
There's just not quite the same level of threat.
Right.
Okay, I can live with that.
Okay.
That's not a problem. But yeah, so then I think pretty much from there, we've got, let's see.
Yeah, this is where Ron goes down and gets his hand bitten because he's not wearing gloves.
Yep.
Helping Hagrid feed Norbert crates of rats, I guess, so that he can get sent to the hospital wing so that Malfoy and co can come like just laugh at him, basically. Again, it's like, I'm just imagining Draco in the common room being like, I'm going to the hospital wing. I'm gonna go have a laugh at Weasley. You want to come? Like,
right.
No, Draco, we don't. We're trying to make Pineapple's tap dance. We're not going to make it a second year.
I bet yours is just doing ballet at this point.
I know, yeah, come on.
You're just so far ahead that you have time to do this. The big question here, though, is sort of like, does Madame Pomfrey, like, I almost wonder if she just excludes herself from the politics of the school hard stop.
Yeah.
Like her goal, her objective is to look after the students, regardless of what happens, regardless of what shows up. It's a magical school. Calamities can happen. I'm not here to ask questions about why, because we know that like Harry, Ron, and Hermione in the next book are illegally brewing Polyjuice Potion, and that it seems like Hermione is able to go and be treated by Madame Pomfrey, and like it doesn't seem like that ends up coming up as like a big issue. Like
she sure was like, what happened to you? Turned into a cat. Yep, come with me.
We'll solve it. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure that
out.
out.
So, like in this instance, I think Ron lies and says that a dog bit his hand, but he doesn't think that Madame Pomfrey believes him. Which, what we come to know about Madame Pomfrey, almost certainly she knows that this is no...
Yeah, not like a dog bite.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's I bet from her point of view, it's like, clearly something you don't want to tell me happened to your hand. That's fine. The important thing is we need to heal it, because whatever you did, I still don't want you to die.
Exactly. Yeah. So we need to treat it. We'll just leave it there. Because at that point in time, it's like, like Madame Pomfrey could just be the reason that they get in trouble. Like, we don't need to have necessarily the next passage delving into like them actually being caught red-handed.
It does seem like, like they wonder whether or not she can recognize a dragon's bite. And I almost have to think she can't, because it does seem like dragon would cross the line of, we need to tell Dumbledore about this.
Unless she does go and tell Dumbledore. And once again, I mean,
true.
Like Dumbledore just knows everything that goes on within the school.
He's
so
like,
it's just
I know.
It's like, who do you think gave the idea for Quirrell to go and bet the egg?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was me.
It was me.
Now, Quirrell, just light conversation here over breakfast and crumpets. You don't by chance have any like dangerous magical beast artifacts lying around, do you? Because if not, I might have an egg that I could loan you. If you're feeling like going gambling
and
tonight.
if you ask me, I bet Hagrid would tell you almost anything to get this dragon's egg.
Yes, this seems like classic Dumbledore.
Classic Dumbledore. Yeah.
Got to make sure Harry gets there eventually somehow, right?
Yeah. I want to say there's like actually maybe like a neat connection here, because we know that Quirrell is good with trolls. Like that is his bit of hocus pocus, and he's the one who let the troll in.
Right.
And I want to say that in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, like the guidebook, when you get to the section on trolls, like there is like the mountain trolls are like from Norway or something. So like it stands to reason that like that's why he has a Norwegian Ridgeback, is because that's where the trolls are too.
That is sort of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like maybe he spent a lot of time in that part of the world and like encountered these. I like that.
Yeah. I was like, ooh, that's pretty cool. That's a good one.
That is super cool. That is super cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, I mean, we're sort of at the end of the chapter though. So they somehow, they don't even know how, managed to get the crate to the tallest tower
somehow
in the middle of the night.
No help from Hagrid, who's totally willing to let them take the fall for this.
Right. Upon arrival, we get to witness Malfoy getting detention, which feels a little bit like karmic justice, where you're just sort of like, thank goodness that like he finally gets in trouble for something somewhere along the way. And you're like, okay, how about this? I mean, they have the invisibility cloak. They're all good. They're able to successfully pass off Norbert. Norbert's like going, gone. We're all good. And then Hermione and Harry go down the stairs without the invisibility cloak.
Without the cloak? Like, are you kidding me, guys?
The number of times that Harry ends up parting with just like his necessary artifacts, like the cloak, the Marauder's map, whatever. It's just like,
dude,
no,
take better care of your stuff.
No, gotta keep an eye on it. It's like you have had one like extremely valuable possession your whole life and you just left it.
I'm also thinking about how this ultimately goes down, because what's going to happen is that McGonagall's going to catch them and give them, well, Filch catches them, I guess. He's going to bring them to McGonagall, who's going to give them detention. And it just 1,000% seems like they're like Hagrid could just say like, actually, I had a dragon. They were helping me get rid of it. Instead, what happens is Hagrid is like, yep, I guess you got detention, and I'll be the one carrying it out.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Remember when I got a dragon and you got in trouble? Great. Now I will be punishing you personally.
Right. Yeah. We're going to go into a very dark and dangerous forest that includes the Dark Lord that gave you the scar and killed your parents. Sound good? Sound good.
Sound good. He's like, I've never known anything to kill a unicorn ever. They're way too fast. It must be insanely dangerous. Let's go.
No big deal. No big deal. So anyway, that was chapter 14 for you,
chapter
folks.
14. It's a wild ride.
It's a wild ride. It's kind of hilarious. It's one of those. I mean, it's left out of the film. Norbert obviously is in there a little bit, but we don't get the entire like exchange and the return to to Charlie and stuff like that. Which I think on the whole just sort of is easy enough to live without. I mean, it's a fun saga and it's cool to like get more of like the relationship and the way that like the Golden Trio interacts with Hagrid and the rest of that type of thing. But it definitely feels like a lot from like an outlining the story standpoint. I can't help but feel like this whole chapter is here for the purposes of getting them the detention so that they end up in the Forbidden Forest basically to get more information. Because we are closing in. On the end of the story.
We've got 3 chapters left.
I know, I can't believe it. So next week we're going to be diving into chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest.
Yeah.
Which should be just another hoot and holler and good time as per always. Jay, do you have a review for us?
I think I could rustle up a review for us here.
Let's take ourselves a little quick peek ski.
All right, this is from man. I don't know why the reviews on Apple always just like fudge up whatever the person's name is, but it's from UJBHHJN.
Wow, what a good username.
I know, great one. It just says, "Hey brother, love your podcast. It is amazing. I listen to it every day. I love the way you deep dive the story. I have a great theory idea. What if Draco was in Gryffindor? I know it's not very likely, but it is an interesting scenario."
Ooh.
So there you go. What do you think? What if Draco was in Gryffindor? Is he like nicer? Is he friends with Harry?
Okay, so I feel like, I mean, it seems to me like the thing you would need almost right off the bat is for Draco to sort of take on a rather Sirius Black sort of like perspective. Yeah,
like demeanor. Like it almost means he's like anti his parents or something.
It feels like he'd be anti his parents. We know from like the deep dives on Pottermore and the archives and stuff like that Malfoy has been told, or Draco Malfoy for that matter, has been told for most of his life that Harry could be the second coming of the Dark Lord and that this could be somebody that's true. We could rally behind. So I could see a world where Draco basically like calls an audible up on site where he discovers like Harry's not going to go for Slytherin. It's like if I'm gonna be able to like get this guy on our side, like, I'm gonna need to go into Gryffindor. Like and so basically I could almost see it being a situation where like Draco then goes on to be the sort of like counterproductive member of Harry's own house. Maybe and like
in a Peter Pettigrew-esque type role.
Maybe in a Peter Pettigrew-esque role, but like I mean, Draco's more competent than Peter. As far as all things being equal, I could see a world where like maybe the first half of the series, what you're getting is a man on the inside who's trying to like kind of foil Harry's plans, or maybe like throughout the series, like we don't know how they keep getting caught or something, and then you come to discover that it's been Draco like pulling the curtain out.
Oh right, yeah.
Like he's the informant, but nobody's expecting somebody from their own dormitory.
Right.
But that would make him extremely privy to as much information as he clearly wants.
Right. I think, I suspect that early on he still tries to like upend Harry's success, but like being exposed to them so frequently and so often and like being united under the banner of Gryffindor, he like, I can imagine a scenario where like they get in detention in the woods here and it's like Harry still helps him out of a jam. Yeah. And it's like, oh wait, he actually still helped me even though I've been working against him this whole time. Is that... Wait, what just happened?
Right. Yeah. So I like the idea that the reason that Draco goes into Gryffindor in the first place is specifically like because he's attempting to get something out of Harry.
That's still the most Slytherin move ever, though.
It is. No, it of course is. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely nefarious. But I like the idea that what this would do is almost like provide somebody who could be like counter to the Golden Trio's objectives from inside of their own camp. But then with time and exposure, Draco ultimately slowly works his way around, and maybe by the end of like Goblet starts to actually like be more of like an ally. Yeah.
So I mean, imagine if Harry gets chosen as champion while Draco's in Gryffindor. Is he still like Cedric Diggory, the real champion?
Right. Like the rest of the Gryffindors are going to shove him in a locker.
Excuse me. Shove him in a locker. I've never imagined lockers at Hogwarts.
No, they're not.
They just find one.
Yeah. Fred and George just like summon one so they can stuff him in it.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez, man.
No, but that's my personal thoughts.
Oh, would he be on the Quidditch team?
Oh,
Yeah, I think so.
I think he probably.
I think he still is.
I think Draco actually is quite good at Quidditch.
I think you're right. I think he's the seeker for Slytherin because he's like he has to be seeker because Harry's the seeker. But like I think he could probably play he'd probably just be chaser is my guess.
Yeah, very like a Ginny-esque kind of character that can sort of do it all.
Yeah, sort of do it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Just out there. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, but not till second year. I still think Harry
not
makes
till
it.
second year, and I have to imagine that. I have to imagine Lucius is like, okay, the whole point of doing this is so that Draco gets to be as special as Harry. So instead of buying the entire team, he probably just gives Draco the Nimbus 2001.
I thought you were gonna say gives everybody the 2001 except for Harry.
Yeah, no, not gonna do that either. That's 2 on the nose.
Even Oliver would have to be kind of like, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, how does Oliver handle that? Like, well.
Oliver takes every advantage he can get.
Yeah,
when it comes to Quidditch.
right,
100%. Yeah, no. If he's given the Nimbus 2001s, he's using them for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah. He can be bought.
Right, he can be bought. He has a price. I like it. Oh man. Anyway, guys, as ever, like we said, super excited for next week's Chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest.
Yes, join us next time through the Griffin Door. Welcome, dear listeners. I'm Jonathan Carlin.
And I'm Benjamin Carlin.
And we invite you to join us through the Griffin Door, your one-way ticket to the enchanting world of Harry Potter. So grab your wands, dust off your broomsticks, and join us as we unlock the secrets behind Philosopher's Stone, Chapter 15, The Forbidden Forest.
Ooh, okay. What a chapter.
Dude, I would say compared to the last chapter, which was completely bonkers, this one, I was just like, I love this chapter. There's so many cool things happening in it. Oh my gosh.
Peak Harry Potter.
It's just, there's some very good stuff happening along the way in here. Although on the complete opposite end of things, we talked about the chapter art last time with Norbert, the Norwegian Ridgeback, being just like one of the best chapter arts.
Yes.
I got to say, we got a complete as like chapter art to chapter, we've done a complete 180. Whereas for this one, we've got a centaur. I'm not sure which one it's supposed to be, Bane, Ferenzi, or
I think
Ronan.
it's Ferenzi. I read it as Ferenzi.
I read it as, probably. He's like the more main character centaur. Yeah. But I got to tell you that like the way this centaur's arms are being depicted, like they do not, to me, convey like the seriousness of any of them. Like
right, yeah. Like these, he's got like his arms out, sort of like angles that would suggest that this is the type of creature that speaks with its hands.
Yeah, like he's like a big gesturing. Like he doesn't have the right demeanor or something. Like even Ferenzi, who's like the nice one, is still like being pretty serious. Like, you know, he's taking a lot of courage to stand up to the other two and go against the stars and stuff.
Right. They seem more stoic. This seems more like a creature that may have like popped out of the woods with like a set of pipes and started like, you know.
Yeah, right.
Like it looks breaking out a tune or something.
Right. It looks more like a half satyr, half horse. You know?
Yeah. I see what you're going for. So yeah, unfortunately, maybe not the best artwork, but otherwise a pretty good, if not a little bit hypocritical chapter.
Oh my gosh, the number of times in this one where it's like, boy, Hagrid, you sure are lucky that Harry like blames himself, because Harry is basically not at fault at all. And if he wanted to throw you under the bus, I don't even think it would be throwing under the bus.
No, yeah. Just quite literally, can I please explain the situation?
Yeah, can I explain the situation? The fact that Hagrid, you know what? Harry does not say Hagrid had a dragon. But you know what Hagrid doesn't do? Say, Professor, it was me. I had a dragon.
I know.
You know?
And then he's like a little bit like still like all very like authoritative.
I know.
So anyway, let's give everybody the overview. The Forbidden Forest, in case you have forgotten, is a chapter that basically delves into the detention that Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Draco all have to go on together, as per being found out in the middle of the castle in the middle of the night, the evening that they attempted to send Norbert off with Ron's brother Charlie's good mates.
Yes.
And so this is the punishment, of which the overlying extreme irony is that they are in trouble for being caught out in the middle of the castle in the middle of the night and how dangerous that could be. And their punishment is to meet at 11 o'clock at night, where they are to go into a place referred to as the Forbidden Forest.
I know.
With the very person that Harry is like
In trouble for helping.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my
exactly.
gosh. It is ridiculous. And the fact that at the very end of the chapter, Dumbledore sends back the invisibility cloak to Harry is just like, yeah, I knew.
Absolutely,
I knew what was up.
Absolutely, he knows that. Like, to me, that is like one of those things where I may have even written it down somewhere along the way, where I was like, does Dumbledore like know that the reason that what am I trying to say here? Does Dumbledore know that the reason why they're in trouble is because Harry was trying to do the right thing and help somebody?
Got to. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no way that Dumbledore knows that that Quirrell is working with Voldemort, but doesn't know that Hagrid has a dragon.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, exactly. And so here's the thing too, is that like, so they get in trouble for doing this particular thing, where we literally just witnessed McGonagall capturing Draco in the
Right.
act of being out in the middle of the night, where she takes 20 points.
20 points from Draco.
From Draco. And then she finds Neville, who is out in the middle of the night looking for Harry and Hermione, and takes 50 points each from them.
Like, why doesn't Draco also lose 50?
Right. This is like one of those chapters where I'm like, I feel like what's actually going on here is that McGonagall basically is super upset that her students have behaved poorly, and is almost more upset with them being extensions of House Gryffindor than she is with Draco, who is not under her like per diem, so to speak.
Maybe more upset with herself.
Maybe.
Look what first years I have, brought up here.
But to me, this feels like the exact opposite of what I think Snape might do in similar circumstances. So it's also like, is this the actual reason that Slytherin is always winning? Because like McGonagall's like, at the end of the day, like, of course I want to win the House Cup, but like also I want to ingrain into you behaviors that will help you as you progress and are representatives of this fine house for all of the future.
Right, like in the real world, you don't get out of jail free cards. And Snape's like, yes, but I do have these get out of jail free cards, and you know what? In the real world, if you know the right people, sometimes you do get them. So
right. And Snape seems like he would have had the kind of schooling where maybe he would have coveted peaking in high school a little bit, and so maybe he was like attempting to give that to his Slytherins. It's like, yes, you answered that question correctly. Probably 50 points is more than enough.
50 points.
Why
there
not?
you go. Well done, Crab.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Exactly. The other thing that I think to keep in mind about this taking of the 50 points is that everybody loves the whole like, Dumbledore totally loves Gryffindors, and he totally calculates the exact number of points that they need in order to win the House Cup.
Oh yeah.
But like,
what's really happening is that the ending is being set up for the House victory.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It feels like that's exactly what's going on. Like Gryffindor needs to be winning all throughout. This is exactly like the Rocky movies. If you've ever tuned into any of those, the Creed movies,
Yeah.
It's like you always have to have the main boxer somehow simultaneously be the reigning champ and the underdog.
Right.
And it's like, how is the reigning champ the underdog in all of these battles? And it's like, because you want to be cheering for the underdog, you can't have like the reigning champ going in there and just like beating somebody up. And,
Right, exactly.
and so I feel like that's exactly what's happening here. It's like, you need Gryffindor to be excelling. You need Harry to be good at Quidditch and consistently earning points and doing all of the right things. And then you still need a reason for them to need to come from behind.
Exactly.
But also, is there any part of you that's just sort of like, maybe Dumbledore is like, by the end of it, he's just kind of like, look, I needed an excuse to give some of these points back, because really on especially Hermione and Harry, like they were helping someone out. Okay.
Right. Like
okay.
I know the full story here. They really shouldn't have lost those 150 points.
Right.
Like we'll make up for it. It's cool. You know what? Draco lost those 20 points. Want to give those 20 points back to Slytherin? It's cool. Harry gets 60. Neville gets 10. There's 10. There's 20. We got it. We're good.
math. He's just got a piece of parchment up there.
Yeah.
Just like scribbling like carry the 3. And then, So anyway, so that's the premise for chapter 15. Do you want to start with our page by page?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. So I love the very first sentence here. His things couldn't have been worse. And by the end of the by like the end of the page, it's like things are worse. Neville's in trouble too.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So the first sentence is things couldn't have been any worse. And then about 100 words later, you get the phrase, had Harry thought that things couldn't have been any worse, he was wrong.
He was wrong. I literally drew an arrow and I was like, had he thought that? Yes, right here,
yeah,
right here.
right,
Not 100 words ago, Harry.
Right.
Yeah, it says like there was no reason on earth that Professor McGonagall would accept for them being out of bed and the creeping around the school in the dead of night, let alone being up in the tallest astronomy tower, which was out of bounds except for classes. And it's like there's no reason on earth she would accept. Like, well, let me tell you one reason you didn't try was the truth.
Yes. This is. I think that the same thing happens a couple of pages later, where like Harry has finally like resigned himself to be like no, like we've gotten in too much trouble. We're not going to do anything anymore. And
like 2 sentences later, he's like, wait a minute, should I poke around?
Oh, yes. Well, what I was going to say is that, like, basically Hermione is just like, we have to go to Dumbledore. Like, that's the thing to do. And it's like, it's amazing to me how often for Harry, Ron, and Hermione, the answer is not going and asking an adult for help.
Right.
Like, it's always like, well, we can rule that out for sure.
That's not happening. We're not supposed to know about Fluffy or the stone.
Right. You think any of these adult teachers are here to help us students? It's like, no way. No way.
No way. Do they care if someone's stealing the stone? No, they'll just be mad that we know about it at all.
Right. And then it's suspicious. And yeah, so it's always kind of hilarious. Once again, though, at the end of that first paragraph, we also get the line, and they may as well be packing their bags already.
Just getting out of here.
It's once again where I really think that for like the first 3 books, this is just like, so it's such a persistent sentiment, is that like fear of
being expelled. That like we broke the rules and that's it.
Right. Like it's well established that like at this point in time, which is kind of interesting, and like it's probably part of the greater arc of the story, is that like for Harry in his first year, kind of over and over again, the worst thing that can happen is expulsion.
Yeah.
Whereas like as you get further in the book, the worst thing that can happen is Harry dies.
Yeah.
Or Voldemort comes back, or both.
Well, I mean, he's threatened to. I mean, he almost dies in this chapter.
Okay. I'm curious about that. Well, let's just touch on it right now. Do you think that Harry's life is genuinely and completely in danger, or do you think that Voldemort is too weak in this instance?
I think he could have killed him.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, because that's not just Voldemort; it's also Quirrell there too.
See, yeah, I guess so. This is like one of those where I feel like if they were powerful enough between the two of them, Quirrell and Voldemort, to kill Harry in this moment, it almost doesn't seem like Firenze should have been able to like falter them backwards.
Well, I guess they're not like super strong. They are drinking the unicorn blood, which will only keep you alive if you're an inch from life.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yes.
So they aren't super strong, but the way Bane talks about it, it's like Firenze shouldn't have interfered because Harry was going to die.
See, but my bigger thought here is that like especially when you get to that last page and the return of the invisibility cloak. So like basically the clear example, especially for it to be on this night of all nights, like the night that he has to like go and serve his detention. Mm-hmm. To me, it all feels like part of that like Dumbledore's big plan. Like Dumbledore's like, look, McGonagall, the only like we can't do this because we have to set a good example. Like, you can't just like allow certain students to be out in bed at night, no matter how much they are the chosen one. So like, yes, we have to give them the detention. Yes, we should have them serve. What we should probably have them do is go and get like a little bit more of an idea about what's going on. So why not just send them out with Hagrid, who there is why they're in trouble in the first place. He won't really be in any danger, but he might be able to like gather a bit more about what's going on and what's at play here. Mm-hmm. Like that's in my mind, it's almost like why else would because they're being punished for being out in the middle of the night, which is supposedly super dangerous. Why send them into something that's even more dangerous?
Oh, I know. That it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know I don't know. I mean, maybe he wanted him to learn about Voldemort while he was in the woods.
Yeah.
I guess. I mean, because I guess Dumbledore could have known that. I mean, this is the second unicorn that's died. So, like, Dumbledore could be on to, like, oh, he needs unicorn blood. All right, he's going to strike again. Let's try and get him out there on the same night or something.
Well, shoot, even Firenze himself is the one who is sort of like, he's talking about unicorn blood and the ability to, like, bring you back from, like, the brink of death. And then he literally follows it up with, like, don't you know what's hidden in the school at this very moment? The Sorcerer's Stone, the elixir of life. It's like...
yeah, it's like if you hadn't figured it out yet, it's like... Dumbledore's like, yeah, he doesn't know how much he knows.
Yes,
It's like,
exactly.
all right, we're going to make sure Harry gets all the information. Let's go.
Right. Yes. But like, to me, it's like if Ferenzi is figuring this out, it's like, for one, why did the Centaurs have any idea what's in the school at all? Like, they don't look at the here and now. They look like to the heavens.
I think they think the heavens are talking about the here and now.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah. We'll get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talking about Mars's break tonight?
Nope, not even that.
Oh,
Nope, talking about some
okay.
other stuff.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. I do think that. Okay. So also the severity, the absolute disappointment McGonagall is like spouting at Neville and Hermione and Harry also just does not feel fair to me. Like the line, I thought Gryffindor meant more to you than this. I was like, oh. Whoa! Wow!
I know. Yeah, this is that would be like a parent being like, "I thought you cared about us."
Yeah,
it's like I do.
I'm
like,
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no.
It's like maybe that's really what her strategy is. But then she goes on to say, "I've never been more ashamed of Gryffindor students," and I'm like, "What? Like really? For being out of bed? For being out of bed is the most shameful thing anyone has done. Like this must happen. I don't know." Nightly in this castle.
Oh my gosh.
There are students out of bed all the time. That is like the nature of it, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, and literally, what she says is 4 students out of bed in one night. I've never heard of such a thing before.
Baloney.
I was like, the Marauders?
I mean, she doesn't know. They don't get caught. They use the map and the cloak appropriately.
So incredibly effectively.
But how effectively could it be? Because of like hundreds of detentions.
Also, yes, right. Yes, also true. And then the other one we have is we know that Molly and Arthur Weasley would also, despite being in the same house, would go out in the middle of the night for like late night
strolls and stuff. Yeah,
it's sort of like, okay, McGonagall. I think
just chill.
Maybe just being like, possibly she's just being like overprotective and she's just trying to like really make a point.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's what I have to think. I even think to an extent sometimes like when Filch is walking them down, I'm like, is Filch just trying to scare them? Is he like being straight up malicious here? Like. Because, like, when he's talking about, like, oh, yeah, I keep the chains oiled, like, that sounds mean, and I believe him that he thinks that should exist. But then he's like, I'll come back for what's left of him. It's like, are you like, under the impression that they're about to die? Like, is that what you're telling them? Like, you're probably gonna die. There's no way you're coming out unharmed. Like, it's like that... You can't possibly think that's justifiable punishment for having been out of bed.
Right, which again, to be clear, because that's the other thing too. He says, "I'll come back at dawn for what's left of them." So it's like from 11 o'clock at night until apparently the sun rises.
Yes,
is how long they're intended to be serving detention out in, again, what is referred to as the Forbidden Forest.
Right. It's like, like what if they'd been caught leaving the Gryffindor common room to go meet Filch in the entrance hall? You know?
Right. Yeah. It's like,
excuse me, what are you doing out of bed? I'm supposed to be out of bed. Why? I have detention. Why? For being out of bed.
It's like, that's detention.
We'll
see you again next week.
Just like, Snape's just like waiting there with like a lawn chair, like, well, look who's back.
Oh my God, I love the thought of Snape in like a super colorful lawn chair and like his black robe, sitting like super stiffly, but also like possibly has a drink with like a little like umbrella sticking out.
Hello,
at the same
Potter.
Time. Yeah. I will say though, to Neville's credit, like this is like one of those things where the fact that like Neville is out there. Once again, it's like he is trying so hard.
He is.
You know, like I feel like I have a lot of empathy for Neville and like what he's going through in this particular year, because you never really get the vibe going forward that Neville is particularly like Dean and Seamus seem like they're best buds.
Yeah.
And then you've got Harry and Ron who are super tight. Mm-hmm. And there are 5 boys in the Gryffindor common room.
Right.
So like I have to imagine that like Neville has basically come to this boarding school where he's kind of struggling with the coursework. He's not making a ton of friends, and every single time he puts himself out there to try to do the right thing, something really bad happens.
I know.
It's just like
he meets a 3-headed dog or falls off his broomstick or
yes, exactly. It's like I mean, the fact that he even had enough courage to get out of bed to try and go and like warn Hermione and Harry that Draco was boasting about like being able to catch him in the middle of the night.
Right.
It's like this guy's like, I don't know. He's just doing his best.
he's doing his best.
I empathize
He's
with
getting
Neville.
caught losing points.
Yeah, zooming out. So anyway, but the other thing that I always do find particularly interesting about this particular set of circumstances is I know going back to one of the earliest Jay versus Ben's, there was a question that was quite literally like, who serves detention in the Forbidden Forest? And of course we were like Harry, Ron, Hermione, Draco, and then like the question was like, oh, was Neville there? You know, like, and I mean, this is, you know, it had just been like a period of time since we had like last read the books or something like that. But like, it is shocking to me that like, that even given the last chapter and like how Ron going to the hospital wing because he's bit by Norbert is the reason that Draco is able to go and collect the book, so that Draco knows to be out in the middle of the night so that you can have this particular group of people. It's like, it's very convoluted, but it is also strange to me that the decision was made to exclude Ron from this excursion.
I know, like Neville is in there instead of Ron this time around.
Yes. So this is like another one of those where it's like Neville doesn't, and I mean, it could be the case that like maybe I'll pick up on it more as like we're leafing through the books so methodically for this particular read through. But like, I think Neville seems to really be more prominent than I always remember in book 1, and then sort of seem to like fade into the shadows a little bit until like book 5, like when the DA
starts
comes about. Yeah, and then he's a very prominent character and sort of like, you know, like Luna's counter and stuff. So anyway, just so I think that's like one of those big things where I'm like, man, that like, you know, the further I get from the books, the more likely I think it is that I will forget that Neville goes on this excursion and not Ron. So. Yeah,
right. It does. Yeah, it's like and he doesn't make a big impact really, other than that Draco scares him, and so Draco ends up with Harry, and even that doesn't super matter. It's just that Hermione probably wouldn't have like run when Voldemort shows up and Draco does.
Yeah, right. Which I think shows a little bit of Harry's bravery.
So yeah, it just sort of isolates Harry like one-on-one.
Yeah,
going on there.
Speaking of isolating Harry, there's another thing that we get in this chapter that Harry is destined to face quite a bit of, which is the phrase that from being one of the most popular and admired people at the school, Harry was suddenly the most hated. This is like a really weird thing that seems to follow. This is almost exactly the Rocky analogy over again, or Creed if you've seen any of those movies, where once again Harry is like remarkably famous and important and keeps foiling the Dark Lord, and also is like not really ever able to achieve proper popularity for like a long time. Like even when he's the Triwizard Champion, people are just mad that he's the Triwizard Champion.
Right, because
like,
he's not old enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like this is one of those where it's like Harry is extremely well known. You get to know why he's the center of attention. Also, most of the time people don't like him for it.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know, that's like one of those things where it's like it's hard to imagine in real life a world where someone like Harry just isn't a lot more beloved almost regardless of what happens, because people know his story.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's like and I wonder how much of it's just from like Harry's point of view too, where like, you know, oh my God, everyone hates me for this or something.
That's a really good point.
I do think, I think Harry is pretty popular for the most part. I mean, he's like Quidditch captain, and he goes out with like the, you know, apparently asks Parvati Patil, the best looking Gryffindor girl, to, you know, the Yule Ball, and then otherwise dates Ginny and Cho, the other two most popular girls at school or whatever.
This is true.
You know, he's not doing so bad.
You know, it actually is extremely funny, even just speaking from my own personal experience, because I think a lot of people have this in high school. Like, I often wonder if anyone, like, you think about like the air quotes, like popular kids you went to school with, and the big question is like, did any of them see themselves in that regard?
Right.
All like the captain of the football team, whatever, like that guy still has to go home and like climb in bed at night, and, you know, like has like his interaction with his family, and like, you know, like there's all this like other stuff going on.
Yeah.
But you always see the gloss,
right?
You know, you don't see like the inner workings. I always just think this is interesting because I often know like what my own personal high school experience felt like, and then Ethan, the editor of this very podcast, went to our high school, was in the same grade as our younger brother, and close with him. And I feel like whenever he talks about his perception of me in high school, it's always like, I wish I saw me the way you apparently saw me in high school. So you're right. Like maybe that's one of those things where like Harry is extremely hard on himself, and then is perceiving this negative attention being like magnified in a way where it's like a lot of these kids probably are like a little frustrated you lost like points and might give you like a look, because of that, but they're also preoccupied with their own studies and have their own things going on, their own social lives.
Right, yeah.
They're not constantly facing a dark lord.
I can't imagine that like every 5th and 6th and 7th year Gryffindor at this point, like their main concern is the House Cup anymore.
That's also true.
Know?
Yeah, like that's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, is like, even right now as I'm like trying to like make this case in my head, it's like, Jay, the House Cup is like live or die, man.
Oh,
like,
I mean, hey, I like to think that it is and that they take it very seriously.
Right,
But
right, right.
who's to say?
Yes,
Who's to say?
It does seem like you could, by the time you're like a 7th year, you're like, who really cares at this point?
Yeah. Or maybe that's when you care the most, because our other theory is that the point scale that like, first years aren't able to earn as many points as like 7th years or something.
Well, except
at a
for the
time.
fact
Except that they
like,
can lose them in spades.
in 50-point swaths.
Yeah. Whew.
Any which way.
Not so good. Not so good. Oh, man. So anyway, moving on, we have Harry make his vow to not poke his nose anywhere that he's not supposed to. And then like a page later, he's like, about the week before the exams were due to start, Harry's new resolution not to interfere in anything that didn't concern him was put to an unexpected test. He immediately starts eavesdropping and overhears Quirrell saying, no, not again, please. And it sounds like someone's threatening Quirrell. And then he like agrees to it. Harry doesn't see who it is, assumes it's Snape. But what I think is crazy here is that he just catches Voldemort talking to Quirrell, basically.
I know this is extremely true, and it's like it seems so much more likely that Quirrell would go somewhere like further from prying eyes. So it is kind of curious, like what type of like recklessness is going on with this duo here, especially because at this point in time you would think. I'm trying to get my timetable right, but you would think that they would have already been out and consuming the unicorn blood, right? Or no? Has it maybe not happened yet?
I don't know. When Hagrid gets out there, it's the second unicorn that's died, so maybe they would have by now.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose it could be the case that like Voldemort is starting to gain a little bit more power than he's had.
Actually, what Quirrell says, because this is actually one of my questions, was Quirrell says, no, not again. It sounded as though someone was threatening him. Harry moved closer. All right. So it's like Harry's interpretation is that Snape is like has been torturing Quirrell, and this is him saying, no, don't torture me again. And he's like, all right. Here's how you get past my thing. But what is the thing, like what is the conversation actually going down? He's saying, no, not again. It's like, is Voldemort torturing him or in some way? Or maybe what he's actually saying is like, you need to go kill another unicorn. And he's saying, no, not again.
I think that is extremely likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that totally tracks. We can double check, see as we get a little bit further, if it tells us how long it has been since the other unicorn was found dead in the woods. Because I do think we get a line from that. From Hagrid as they first get out there. So, that'll
we'll
be
have to
interesting.
double back on that. That could be exactly what it is, though.
I will say that this entire piece of dialogue does, I think, slightly make up for the scene in the woods with Snape, where Snape is like kind of saying one half of a conversation that looks really suspicious based on everything he's saying.
Yeah.
But like, it's like when you know the whole truth, it's like supposed to be looked differently. I feel like we're kind of critical of that one. I do think this particular paragraph could be like to a more savvy reader, and by savvy, what I mean is like when we read these books, we were little kids.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to read it as an adult and be like, okay, I'm starting to think Quirrell might have something weird going on.
Yeah, he's coming up a lot.
Yeah, it's like why are we talking about Quirrell so much? Yeah, which is also kind of interesting. Okay, so let's see here.
Harry loses a bet for 12 Sorcerer's Stones.
Yes, he does. Wow,
I
Harry.
know.
I mean,
dude, going all in.
Talk about a piece of trivia, though. I can just hear it already. It says how many Sorcerer's Stones would Harry have bet that Snape had just left the room talking to Quirrell? I'd be like, goodness gracious. I mean, like 3 Sorcerer's Stones seems like 1 Sorcerer's Stone seems like a lot.
Seems like more than one. Yeah, it's about more than enough for 2 people apparently.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Okay.
Oh, there's also like, they're like, oh, Snape's done it, said Ron. Quirrell's told him how to get past his anti-dark force spell. I love the way they have to like classify, like they don't know what it is yet, so that's what they just keep calling it. But then he says like, I bet there's a book in here telling you how to get past a giant 3-headed dog. And it's like, I mean, I love that they must just not know about like Avada Kedavra at all, because otherwise it'd be like, well, yeah. And that's another thing. It's like, why doesn't Quirrell just kill Fluffy?
Yeah.
You know?
It's a good
Like,
question.
Very, like, there's all this, like, we got to get a dragon egg and get Hagrid drunk and trick him into telling us how to do it. It's like a living creature. That would work on it, right?
Yeah, right. No, it does seem like with their powers combined, there should be something that they would be capable of doing to overcome Fluffy.
Yeah.
Like that seems highly likely.
I guess maybe it's a giveaway. Like, maybe ideally you just get around Fluffy, get the stone, get out, and then Fluffy's still there and no one even knows it's gone.
Right, that's a good point as well. Yeah, like if the dog is, Fluffy's just found dead, it's sort of like, well, that's kind of revealing.
Yeah.
The other distinct possibility here is that we know that Voldemort is in a rather weakened state, even in his occupation of Quirrell. So,
Yeah.
and we know that, at least according to Mad Eye Moody / Barty Crouch, everybody in Harry's 4th year class could cast Avada Kedavra at him at once. He wouldn't get so much as a bloody nose. So it's like, it could be the case that Quirrell is just quite literally not a powerful enough wizard to Avada Kedavra something.
That's possible. I mean, he also doesn't reach for this spell when Voldemort commands him to kill Harry.
Right, yeah.
He
goes for physical
He goes
combat.
for physically choking him or something. Like, dude.
Ironically, something, not that you could even really think about it, but just any type of physically attacking Harry as a baby probably would have worked a lot better than magically attacking.
Yeah.
Which is really the only way that Lily's protection comes into effect at all. But either way, not the point.
Well, I think even if he'd Avada Kedavra him, it wouldn't. I think the same thing would have happened. Like, Lily's protection would that have still worked, do you think?
Wait, what do you mean?
Like, if in the chamber Quirrell had cast Avada Kedavra, do you think Lily's protection would have continued to protect Harry from the spell?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I absolutely do.
Right.
Yeah. In
Right.
that case.
Because this is Voldemort's that's what he's trying to overcome when he takes the blood in.
Right.
As much
right,
as
right.
being able to physically touch him as able to magically touch him. Unfortunately, by taking the blood into him, he prevents himself from being able to magically touch him. He's in a lose-lose the moment Lily takes the dive.
At some point in this saga, we will spend an enormous amount of time breaking down just how Voldemort is in his own way over and over and over. Like, he's his own problem. He's his own biggest obstacle.
He is, yeah, he absolutely is. Harry is just like all of his shortcomings personified, but he creates Harry basically.
Yes. So as we move forward onto the next page, we get to the 11 o'clock hour when Harry, Hermione, Neville, and Draco are all meeting Filch to be taken out to Hagrid's hut. This is again where it seems like Filch is sort of bringing up all of the old punishments that apparently they supposedly used to do, such as hanging you by your wrist from the ceiling for a few days. He says, I've still got the chains in my office. Keep them oiled just in case they're ever needed. I am willing to bet that those chains have literally never been used before.
I know. This is one of the things. It's like if the fact that he has the chains suggests that the chains were used, but why would you ever do this to your students? What version of the school is it where you're like, oh yeah, magic school, pretty rough. Sometimes they hang you in the dungeon, straight up torture you.
No, it just doesn't seem. It doesn't seem
right,
remotely likely to me. So I'm thinking that this is just one of those things where, and to your point, I think it's entirely possible what Filch is really trying to do, because he lays it on so thick that it's it does seem to me a little bit like what Filch is really doing is just trying to be hey, don't mess up. There are scary things that we can do. This is
the staff really leans into the we're gonna scare these kids straight.
Yeah, pretty much.
Are they in danger? No, but are we gonna let them know that? Absolutely not.
Right. Just let them be terrified, and then they'll never go out in the middle of the night ever again.
Exactly, unless we make them.
Precisely. Case in point, exactly now.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's see here. Yeah. So then they get out there. They discover that they're doing detention with Hagrid, which is awfully convenient considering it's Hagrid's fault that they're there in the first place.
Oh my gosh, I know. So they get the note. Yeah, and it says he half expected Hermione to complain that this was a whole night of studying lost, but she didn't say a word. Like Harry, she felt they deserved what they'd got. And I'm like, do you guys really feel that way? You're not mad at Hagrid at all for this situation.
Yeah.
It is 1000% his fault. One, not only that Quirrell now has the information to get past Fluffy, which you haven't figured out yet, but two, that you got caught moving a dragon to he is the one who did wrong and you got in trouble. Why are you not mad at him?
Yeah. I don't know. It almost even seems like the whole story is just trying to sidestep that at all. Like, even the fact that, like, when I was a kid, I don't even know if it would have occurred to me that these were quite literally back-to-back chapters. And so, like, in my mind, it's like, well, it's kind of been a while. You may have just forgotten about the fact that it was Hagrid's fault. And it's like, no, literally, like, 4 pages ago.
It's very Hagrid's fault.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's,
Yeah, this Filch saying, I'm much mistaken if you'll all come out in one piece. It's like, geez, man.
I highlighted that, too. It's just like, all right, okay.
Come on. Like, you can't have the students thinking that the school wants them hurt,
Right. It seems like not.
Also, then there's Hagrid who says, that's why you're late, is it? Like, been lecturing them. It's not your place to do that. You done your bit. I'll take over from here. And it's like, that is actually not why they're late. The detention says that it will take place at 11 o'clock, and then it specifically says at 11 they leave the common room. So they are the reason they are late.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like maybe 10:40, y'all. Give yourself a little bit of time.
Give yourself a little time to get down there.
I mean, I get it. I am perpetually late to all things. So I sort of get being like, we got to be there at 11. It's like, what time is it? 11:02. Should we leave the house? Okay, yeah, let's go.
Well, I mean, there's being late for stuff, and then there's being late for like court,
Right.
It's like you don't show up late to stuff that is you're in trouble for.
Right. So, okay, here's a question for you, because this sort of crossed my mind for the first time. We've sort of gone on and on about our suggestion that Filch could be a poltergeist, but it also occurred to me it occurred to me while I was reading this chapter, rather, that the description of drinking unicorn's blood, let's see here. We get the. I want to make sure I get the. Wording exactly right. The blood of a unicorn will keep you alive even if you are an inch from death, but at a terrible price. You have slain something pure and defenseless to save yourself, and you will have but a half-life, a cursed life, from the moment the blood touches your lips. This is something, I mean, for one, you could make the argument that quite literally all of Dumbledore, or all of Voldemort's plans, rather, ultimately end up working against him to the tune of, like, taking Harry's blood, and then Harry's blood being the thing that tethers him to life when he tries to kill him in the forest in Deathly Hallows. It's like, you could make the argument that quite literally everything that happens to Voldemort going forward is due to the fact that he took in
the unicorn's blood.
The unicorn's blood. But the other thing that occurred to me was, like, is there any chance that any other characters in the story that we've ever met have drank unicorn's blood? And, like, because that seems...
Oh, and are now living a cursed life.
And I was like, Filch. Like, if anything, like, it almost feels like you could make the argument that something happened somewhere along the way, and now what Filch is forced to do is live what is otherwise...
He does have a cursed existence.
He does, yeah, exactly. I mean, like, his whole life just seems cruel, and it would be cruel for anybody to continue to employ someone who is so incapable of handling magical maladies in a school full of people that create magical maladies.
Yeah.
But that would be kind of a cursed life.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, has anyone else in the story drinking unicorn blood?
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of, like, The Good Place, the TV show, which, like, major spoilers for the plot of season 1 inbound. I'll give you just a second to exit away in case you need to. But the basic premise is that, like, they're brought to a place that is perceived as the good place, but the actual con that is going on is that what they're actually doing is living in the bad place.
Right.
And so, like, for example, that may take forms in ways that you don't necessarily imagine. For example, like, one character, Chidi, is presented with 2 potential love options, and he is really bad at making decisions. So his worst nightmare is having to make a choice between who to love.
Right.
And it's like, you normally think of cursed life being so, like dark and destitute, more almost like what Filch is actually describing,
right?
Like hanging from a chain or something, something truly terrible and awful. But in this particular case, it would just be like a completely and utterly aggravating and demeaning kind of existence.
Right, yeah. It's just like this itch that can't be scratched.
Exactly, exactly. Yes. And so that was my thought, I was like, okay, here's a different explanation that isn't the same one we're always going on about.
Filch is the poltergeist?
Yes,
which
exactly.
he totally is.
Most likely, yeah.
More like, or I guess he drank unicorn blood, who knows, maybe.
Right, yep.
Yeah. I love, there's this line, too, from Hagrid where he says, you've done wrong and now you've got to pay for it. And I'm like... dude.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. He's saying it to Malfoy, but it's like you're implying it about the other three, okay? And then I love Malfoy saying, if my father knew I was doing this, and he says, he'd tell you that's how it is at Hogwarts. And I'm like, no, he would not. Dude, literally 2 books from now, he's going to try and get you fired because Buckbeak scratches Draco.
Yeah, this is true. But it does make you wonder whether or not, I mean, Hagrid predates Lucius attending school by quite a bit. So it does make you wonder whether or not Hagrid witnessed any of Lucius's own dealings at school while he was there as a student.
Yep.
The one thing that I did underline that I was just sort of like, well, that's not the worst idea, but is following up almost this exact sentiment you just described, which is you'll do something useful, which I do think is sort of like all things being equal as far as just general detentions go, maybe not going into the Forbidden Forest in the middle of the night where a Dark Lord could just be prowling and killing unicorns. But I do think the idea of providing a like useful service that you could even like it can come across as punishment, but also give the person like a sense of accomplishment.
I mean, yeah, even the next year, like Ron has to go polish all the trophies in the trophy room as part of his punishment, and Harry has to help Lockhart answer his fan mail.
I'm saying useful stuff.
Very useful, man. Things got done. Harry can put a feather a peacock feather in his cap, probably.
Yeah, no kidding.
But I also like in here he says copying lines. What's that's good to anyone? It's like it's so funny that he specifically says copying lines, because that's exactly like that. It's so pointless because it's exactly what Umbridge makes everyone do is copy lines.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's like
with their own blood.
With their own blood, yeah. Hers is like not useful to anyone and quite painful.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. Here's the line that we were looking for. So they reach the edge of the Forbidden Forest. They haven't even, I think, entered yet when Hagrid is already able to spot the unicorn blood. He says, "Look there," said Hagrid. "See that shining stuff on the ground, silvery stuff? That's unicorn blood. There's a unicorn. There's a unicorn in there, been hurt badly by summit. This is the second time in a week. I found one dead last Wednesday. We're going to try and find the poor thing." So last Wednesday, how long has it been?
Let's see. This is still pre-exams, I believe.
Right.
And when he hears Quirrell talking to Voldemort, it is about a week before the exams were due to start. So, yeah, if this is about a week before they were due to start, and they go into the forest before the exams, that means it's less than a week's worth of time. So last Wednesday would have been before the conversation with Quirrell.
Okay, in that case, then in my mind, the pleading that Quirrell has with Voldemort inside of his own head, the no, not again, please, is almost certainly
about killing another unicorn.
Yes.
Okay. I think that makes sense to me too.
Which I don't think I've ever fully connected those dots in the past.
No, me neither. So
maybe that's one of those things that was just very evident, but it had never occurred to me. So, okay, we'll take that. Let's see. What do we have next then? So they go into the woods. They split up. Malfoy wants to go with Fang. So it's Malfoy, Fang, and Neville, which just seems like a recipe for disaster, if you ask me.
It's another bit of hypocrisy as well there, because Hagrid first says, "There's nothing that lives in the forest that'll hurt you if you're with me or Fang." And Draco's like, "Fine, I want Fang." And Hagrid's like, "Fine, but he's useless." But wait, you just said nothing will hurt you if you're with Fang. Like, which is it, man?
Hagrid, inconsistent.
Who knew?
Yeah.
I don't think. Yeah, it's like, oh boy, going over it with a fine-tooth comb sometimes it's like really stands out.
Yes, indeed. There's the sparks that they have to send out of the end of their wand. This is always one of those things that I wonder, like, if you have an actual wand, because they don't really specifically talk about it necessarily, but it seems like throwing out sparks is almost like the easiest. It's like not even classified as like a spell.
Right. It's just everyone can do that. Just red, green. Like even Neville successfully does it.
True.
In this chapter, like even Neville can send out red sparks
under pressure.
Under pressure.
Yeah. There we go. Okay. So that's because they do this again in Goblet of Fire. This is like the way that they're supposed to indicate like if something is wrong.
Right.
I do wonder if it's just sort of like extremely, extremely simple.
Right.
Like point and gesture, and out will come sparks.
Right, yeah. I mean, I guess by then you'd expect, they're supposed to be 7th year, so you'd expect them, of course, to be able to send sparks out. But, like, even first years are apparently just like, yeah, you can do that, right?
Right. Yeah. Like that's
basic magic.
Seems simple enough. There's a lot of talk of werewolves being out in the Forbidden Forest in this chapter, which is kind of interesting because there's not really any reason for there to be werewolves living in the Forbidden Forest.
Yeah, this could be like one of those. There's like a couple explanations, I suppose, that you could perhaps that like if you are a werewolf, you are sort of shunned by society, like even in your human form. So like maybe you've just maybe there are human werewolves who take refuge in the forest in the meantime or something, which would seem unlikely, but I guess possible, because they actually do. There is a line that says the moon was bright, so it's like it doesn't say it was a full moon, but it kind of suggests that it is, because it's like casting shadows. It's so bright this particular night, so it's like it's possible that if there are human werewolves, like even if maybe they don't live in the forest in the meantime, that like on this night is a night of werewolves. Because it is a full moon.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah,
that
so
tracks,
they might have just broken out of wherever they normally live and gone into the forest, which is sort of what Lupin does eventually when he transforms.
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So.
That was my big thing, though, is that and I guess you make a good point. Like they could just have colonies, like living sort of like separate from society, which I think Lupin does say, like in. Is it Half-Blood Prince, where he's doing missions for Dumbledore?
Yeah.
And he's been like trying to go and like plead with the werewolves to like not fall, to
Voldemort.
Yeah, to Voldemort. So I guess that's reasonable. But as I was reading it, I was just sort of like, they're people.
Yeah, right. Like, what are you talking about? Although that's also one of those things. If you ever play Hogwarts Legacy and you're wandering in the forest, there are like people who are otherwise werewolves just like out there.
Oh, are there really?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of interesting. That takes place a long time before now. So who's to say it's the same?
Right.
But that is like, and that's a game, and they just want to give you things to fight in the woods. So
that's
there's
fair.
that.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. That's interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's in there as well. But I love also where he's just like, he's not that concerned that they're going to get hurt, but he's also never known anything that could hurt a unicorn before. And that's out there. So let's go.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it does feel a little bit like, okay, this must be something pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
We also get like a little bit of Hagrid's prowess a little bit as he is going, let's see here. I think that there's... What is the sound? The three of them listened. Something was slithering over dead leaves nearby. It sounded like a cloak trailing along the ground. Hagrid was squinting up the dark path, but after a few seconds, the sound faded away. I knew it, he murmured. That's someone in here that shouldn't be. This is almost like sort of like that mechanic that that can like you pull in and he's like, oh, your fourth cylinder's firing wrong, huh? And it's like, you could just tell by the way it like sounds. Like, it's like this is one of those where you're like, man, Hagrid must really know the forest.
Right, like he can like tell that this sound does not belong here at all.
Right. It's like this is not like some creature, that maybe is like unusual to be here. It's like this is not at all supposed to be here.
Right.
So okay, that's the other question too then. Do you think that in this particular situation that this is both Quirrell and, I mean, I guess it would be, again, if we go back to the pleading, but like the slithering has always sort of led me to believe that this is more of like the shadowy cloak of an existence that Voldemort is on his own.
No, I don't think you can really leave Quirrell. I think it's Quirrell with Voldemort on the back of his head, and it just sounds like slithering because it's a cloak going over leaves.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough. Let's see.
So then we meet the centaurs.
Yes,
we have Ronan and Bane show up and continue. This is what about just my. I love they keep Hagrid keeps asking them questions and they're just like, Mars is bright tonight. Yeah, we've heard.
this is always one of me and you's favorite parts to say from the whole series. It's just absolutely hilarious because like Hagrid's trying so hard to like keep asking questions and the centaurs are just sort of like, yeah, we're just going to keep kind of like sidestepping it, which as soon as you talk to like Ferenzi, you pretty much learn like that this is part of their culture. So like part of me almost wonders whether or not like, are they preoccupied and not really listening to Hagrid, or are they just being like intentionally evasive? And
they're definitely, they know exactly what's up. And that, I think like the way they're phrasing it back to him is just like, oh, oh, have you seen anything strange? It's like the forest hides many secrets, and it's like Ferenzi knows exactly that it's Voldemort. And it's like, just say Voldemort, dude.
Right.
It's like you're being vague so on purpose here. But I guess they're like, we shouldn't interfere, is what the star says. We're allowed to know what they say, but we can't tell people what they say. That would be ridiculous.
Yeah. So this is sort of interesting because I was trying to think about in like other fiction whether or not like a Watcher is a kind of like consistent character. So the closest thing that came to mind for me is the Watchers from like the Marvel.
Oh yeah,
Uatu, yeah. And it's sort of like it's a strange kind of involvement to have with the greater world because it's sort of like you're tuned in, like you're seeing the signs, you're capable of like reading like the stars, the planets, like what's happening and like what's coming, but it's hard to know like what type of role inaction can have. Like is it common for there to be this entity in stories in real life, like where there's someone who's just sort of like watching from afar and like letting it all unfold?
Right. I don't know, but I think what's interesting about the centaurs is, and the way that they read the stars, is that they are like pretty accurate about the things they read, but like what Ferenzi later tells the class in Order of the Phoenix is that while the stars can tell you what the future is, it's not like really precise about the timing of stuff. Like things can be off by like, I don't know, like decades or something or whatever.
Sure.
Yes, we're in a period, we're like in a brief peace between two wars or something, but it's like we don't know when the other war is going to happen, but it's definitely going to happen,
Right.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to be fair, I mean, we literally know that Lily and James were involved with the first Wizarding War, and Harry is directly involved with the second Wizarding War.
Yeah.
So if you want to call this space in between peace, which if you're Harry, I'm sure you don't.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Like, I had no peace in my department.
Yeah, right.
This whole time.
Yeah, but if you're like Fudge, you're like, everything's great. We're back to normal. He who must not be named is gone. Amazing.
Right. Everything's amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. So we get the exchange with the centaurs though, where they basically are just not super keen to let anything on at all.
Then we split up, and Hagrid, or what is it? Neville and Malfoy go one way, and Harry and Hermione and Hagrid. I love how Hagrid's just like, yeah, you two, my favorite students, you come with me.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah, it'll be great. Well. Then they go out there. Malfoy pulls a trick on Neville. Harry's like, I don't care if Malfoy has, but if something's got Neville, it's our fault he's out here in the first place. I was just like, actually, it's Hagrid's fault. Then they switch up, and then we get to the hooded figure. So eventually they switch places, and then we get to the point where they find the unicorn, and out of the shadows, a hooded figure came crawling across the ground like some stalking beast and began to drink the unicorn's blood. Blah. Real scary.
It is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But once again, I mean, this is another one where it to me, like came crawling across the ground. I mean, I don't know. This is again where I feel like I'm like, part of me is not picturing Quirrell in like a truly like pathetic state. It just seems so much more menacing.
Well, I think Voldemort says Quirrell has to be the one drinking the blood for him.
Okay.
Because I think the other thing is that it's not even Voldemort. Like, Voldemort isn't even the one who needs the potion, right? Or needs the unicorn blood. Like it's Voldemort already has the Horcruxes. He already can't die. He needs Quirrell to stay alive because he's basically acting like a parasite to Quirrell.
So yeah, like his raising strength, if anything, is probably slowly depleting Quirrell's ability to exist.
Right. I mean, it's not unlike the diary and Ginny. It's like the more he takes from Quirrell, like the more he takes from Ginny, the more he's about to come back to life.
I like that.
You know?
Okay.
So there's that. And I think he also just says it's the Quirrell drinking it for him at one point.
Yes. Then we immediately, though, I mean, so Malfoy, sort of runs away in total fear. It doesn't say, like, Harry says that he is, it got to its feet and came swiftly towards Harry. He couldn't move for fear. So this is kind of interesting because, like, Harry over and over will be faced with essentially this exact situation, paralyzing fear, like where he needs to either like face down the challenge before him, and in some ways it's almost like it's fascinating the contrasting forms of fear that
Yeah.
Harry has versus Draco. Like Draco runs from the fight,
Right.
basically, and Harry is sort of like fixed in place. But this is one of those things like about Harry where, I mean, I remember playing Capture the Flag at night as a kid of Harry's age and being terrified, like walking through the woods by myself.
Right.
And so like there is a part of me that's almost like, man, like this kid's got some guts.
Oh, for
you
sure.
know, to be out there. Like, I mean, he's definitely got like his you know, I mean, it says that he's afraid, but like, I mean, I feel like that's where you can tell like that true Gryffindor nature is like burning its way through.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if this is like fight or flight, like Draco clearly is in flight and Harry does not.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but I guess some people say it's like fight or flight or freeze. So
Or
maybe he's
freeze.
more like frozen this time.
Maybe he's more frozen in this case, but either
Yeah.
which way. He definitely experiences the excruciating pain in his scar, which is definitely letting us know that like pretty much what he's encountered is Voldemort.
Absolutely. It's interesting though that if it's like like what must be, you don't get a great, yeah, you're right. It's like what is underneath the hooded figure is like kind of vague. Like I feel like you're like Quirrell has to be there, but why is it hurting him so much in this particular case that he's making like face-to-face contact with Quirrell? Because like Voldemort's head would still be the wrong way, right? Or is it like was Voldemort the one drinking the blood and now he's like actually facing Harry right here? Or is it just like, you know?
I suppose on some level, like what you would assume. I mean, like, you know, we know for the book's sake, the overall plot of having a story, you know, in the setup and the eventual obstacles and going beneath the school and getting past Fluffy and the flying keys and the potions and all that type of stuff, the chessboard. But I mean, I suppose for all intents and purposes at this point in time, Voldemort could just quite literally just be straight up prepared to attack and attempt to kill Harry.
Yeah.
And Firenze just intervenes.
Well, I think that's exactly what's happening.
Too
Is that
quickly,
he's
yeah.
preparing to kill him.
Yes.
Because, and I mean, and I'll talk more about that in a second. But yeah, Firenze shows up, chases Quirrell / Voldemort off, and then Ronan and Bane show up, and they're all like, "What are you doing?" Blah. So I love the first thing. What is it? Bane says, "What have you been telling him? Remember, Firenze, we're sworn not to set ourselves against the heavens." Which just like the way, like that sentence alone is like they know something. Like there is something to have been told. It's like, you know, it's like little did he know. You know, it's like that means it's something you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
What have you been telling him? That means there's something to tell. You know.
Right. Yeah. That does mean. That means that there is some. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. So there's that, and then. Bane kicked his legs back. For the best, what is that to do with us? Centaurs are concerned with what has been foretold. So it's like, okay, but what has been foretold, you know?
Right.
In that moment. And then it says, do you not see that unicorn frenzy bell to Bane? Do you not understand why it was killed? Or have the planets not let you in on that secret? And it's like, so even that, it's like they're all speaking in vaguisms because they're in front of Harry, but it's like he's saying, it's like, yeah, we all know what that was and why that happened. Duh, it's right there written in the sky. Come on.
Right,
you know,
right. Like they clearly know more about what's going on, and what's almost surprising is that like if they are tuned into it in any capacity, or maybe Firenze's just taking this on himself, but like it is almost surprising that Voldemort / Quirrell has been able to come out there and do it more than once without being stopped. You know, like
they don't care about that. I think what they're mad about is that he stopped him from killing Harry.
I see.
Yes,
I see.
because, and this is where this is the awesome foreshadowing in this particular chapter. Why Bane is so upset that Firenze stopped Voldemort from killing Harry in the Forbidden Forest is because it is written in the sky that Voldemort is going to kill Harry in the Forbidden Forest, which he eventually does.
Wow.
I know, and I think that is so crazy, and he's so mad at him for interfering, but it's exactly what Firenze says in Order of the Phoenix. They're like, the planets get it right, they're just not very good with the timing. It's hard to know when it's going to happen, but if you're the Centaurs and you're like, okay, Dark Lord going to kill Harry in the forest, well, God, all the pieces were right here. That had to be it. Firenze, are you crazy?
That's a slam dunk right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is insane.
It's so true, and it's so interesting.
It gets better. It gets better because if that's what's supposed to happen, the Centaurs don't join the fight at the Battle of Hogwarts until after Harry is killed by Voldemort. Because at that point, to them, like what the stars have said has come true.
Has come true.
Yeah.
So even then, they're not even like preoccupied with the fact that Harry comes back.
Right.
Oh, it's so interesting.
It's crazy.
That is amazing. Because the other thing I've always found to be interesting about the fact that Voldemort is waiting for Harry in the woods is like he's all over the place during Deathly Hallows, during the Battle of Hogwarts, where like he's in the Shrieking Shack with Snape and like that whole situation. Then he's like, I'll be waiting in the forest for Harry. And it's like, why the forest?
Yeah, what are you doing?
What an inconvenient place to be.
I know, just like need a place to retreat, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, but it has to be the forest. Because it always was going to.
It was always going to be in the forest. Yeah. Oh man, I was like, man, that's really good.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh man, I never thought about it that way before.
So there you go. That's why the Centaurs are so mad that Firenze interferes here, because like they know this is supposed to happen.
This is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Even with Hagrid. Hagrid's even.
Hagrid's even there. Yeah. So it's like everything is really on the chessboard, as it were. And if you're like looking at it, and of course like Firenze intervening is also part of it because it's not supposed to happen yet. But I can see why they're upset. And then, gosh, I love the conversation that he goes on to have with Harry and tells him, the blood of a unicorn will keep you alive, even if you're an inch from death, but at a terrible price. But you'll have a half-life, a cursed life. And Harry says, but who'd be that desperate? If you're going to be cursed forever, death's better, isn't it? And I was I know, I like circled it. I was like, death's better, isn't it? It's like Harry, as an 11-year-old, already gets it.
It's like it's the whole theme.
It's the whole thing.
So
it's the whole thing.
I literally highlighted it and I wrote next to it, hey, that's the theme of the whole story.
Yeah.
And you're exactly right. I mean, like in book 1, Harry has already got it figured out.
Death's better, isn't it? Cursed forever. It's like Voldemort's already cursed forever anyway without the unicorn blood because of the Horcruxes. So it's like there's that.
Right.
Like
yes.
he's like he curses himself in so many different ways.
Well, and again, going back to that big finale where Harry does walk into the forest. I mean, basically what Harry is saying is like to allow Voldemort to live would be basically subjecting all of humanity, all of wizard kind at the bare minimum to a cursed life. And so for Harry, death's better.
Death's better.
Yeah.
It all comes very full circle here in the forest.
That's incredible.
Oh man.
My mind is just being blown.
And then even there's the next page, Harry realizes, or he just thinks back to that conversation with Hagrid where he says, don't know if he had enough human left in him, did I? And it's like, Hagrid is so actually spot on the money with that particular sentiment that Voldemort does not have enough human left in him to die. Like he cannot die.
Right.
In fact, or he can't even when Harry defeats him, he does not die true, like a true death in the traditional sense.
Right.
Like when you when Harry goes to like the limbo spot in King's Cross and he sees like the gross little baby, like that is the preview of Voldemort's destiny. Like he doesn't, Harry's able to get up and walk around and choose to move on or whatever. Voldemort, when he is defeated by Harry later on, that is where he is stuck. So he is not like able to choose to come back as a ghost. He is just stuck in limbo forever. He doesn't have like the death experience. Like you couldn't call him back with the resurrection stone.
Yeah, no, and I think that's exactly it. Is that like Harry enters King's Cross Station, which is his version or manifestation inside of Limbo. But Limbo is, I mean, I guess some of the question there is like, was Dumbledore? That's a whole big question in and of itself. Is Dumbledore waiting in Limbo for Harry to get there?
Or does he just like return to Limbo to speak to him or something?
Right.
That's a good question. I don't know.
It seems like when we have to save for King's Cross Station like 3 years from now.
Yeah, 3 years from now when we get to King's Cross.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking of Dumbledore, we're making it to our second to last page here and really kind of like the closing sentiments. And there, Hermione, I think, is talking and says, Harry, everyone says Dumbledore's the only one you know who was ever afraid of. And this is kind of like a curious sentiment. Like I know it to be true. Like this is not like a fact that like blows my mind or like I haven't forgotten that this is true. But like just as you're reading through, it's kind of like, I wonder why Voldemort fears Dumbledore. Like, I almost wonder if this is like one of those things where Voldemort was able to unearth enough about Dumbledore's past that he knows, because it seems unlike Voldemort, or it seems more like Voldemort to underestimate his opposition. Mm-hmm. And this is almost like adequately respecting Dumbledore, which almost to me makes me think like he's aware that Dumbledore might be capable of like some dark stuff himself.
Well, but then you'd think he'd have recognized the picture with Grindelwald or who the sandy-faced boy was a lot faster.
You would think that. That's a good point. Yeah, you definitely would. So I don't know. I mean, maybe the involvement with Grindelwald is lesser known.
Dumbledore would have been one of his professors at school. So I guess he would have just been able to like see him do magic there and stuff as well. I don't know.
Right. But you would think that Voldemort would think that he was just stronger.
I guess Voldemort would have been in school when Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald, right?
I think it's like right in that zip code, because this is always the thing with Fantastic Beasts that I was so eager to learn. But the saga starts, I think, in 1926, which also happens to be the year that Voldemort is born.
Right.
So then how does that math work?
Well, so because the chamber is opened the first time in 1942,
right?
Because that's 50 years ago, which is the year Hagrid is expelled.
Correct.
And the duel happens in 1945. So I don't know what year Tom Riddle is. It a fifth year in that?
I think he's a fifth year.
So I guess by the time 1945 rolls around, it's either like the spring semester or he's graduated.
Yeah.
Hogwarts at that point.
Yeah.
So either way, he's going to have Dumbledore defeating Grindelwald. It's going to be have been incredibly, public knowledge. And if that's otherwise the greatest dark wizard of all time, and that's what you're trying to be, and this guy defeated him, it seems like that, you could be afraid of him.
You could be afraid of him.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly, yeah. I mean, it's just I feel like when you talk about Grindelwald fearing Dumbledore a little bit, it seems like it's because even to Dumbledore's own admission, he knows, Grindelwald knew that Dumbledore was a shade better wizard.
Yeah.
But this is one of those things where it doesn't seem like up until the Battle of the Department of Mysteries that Voldemort would face him head on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I just think it's curious. I guess it's just simply because it almost feels like Voldemort would think that it goes back to that line from McGonagall in the first chapter, which is you're too noble to do the dark things that Voldemort might do. Maybe even that's what Voldemort realizes is it's all it would take would be Dumbledore not being noble, and then I would lose.
Oh, right. If I'm only the greatest dark wizard because Dumbledore is not choosing to be dark.
Exactly. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So maybe that's a piece of it.
Right.
But then, of course, to close out, we then learned that Dumbledore has, in fact, recovered the invisibility cloak and returned it to Harry folded up inside of his sheets in his bed with the note that says, "Just in case."
Yeah, meaning that Dumbledore went up, knew enough to go looking for Harry's invisibility cloak, recover it, and I feel like probably knows the whole story about the dragon.
Almost certainly.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like the type of thing that Hagrid would lie to Dumbledore directly about. Nor at this point in time do I think that Hagrid would worry that, even given the circumstances, that Dumbledore would fire him for such a thing.
Yeah.
So anyway. Okay, Jay. Well, I think that closes us out of chapter 15. We are into the final 2 chapters of the entire book. The end is in sight, which is very exciting.
Know.
Looking forward to chapter 16, Through the Trap Door. Do you have a review for us before we close out?
I sure do. This review is from Lizanne. It says, "So much fun. This podcast is so much fun. It prompted me to re-listen to the books again. Did make me question, why is the Bloody Baron the only person/ghost that Peeves listened to? I'm wondering what your guys' take is on that." Which is, I got that question. I was like, you know what? I've never really thought about it. I've always just sort of thought the Bloody Baron was scary looking, and that's why Peeves was scared of him.
I know, that's a good question. Okay, so let's try to think a little bit here. The Bloody Baron would have at least existed. The Bloody Baron would have existed at the same time as the Founders.
Yeah, because he knows Salazar, or he knows Rowena Ravenclaw, who was alive at the same time as, the Bloody Baron wants to marry Helena Ravenclaw,
right?
Helena Ravenclaw. And she is alive at the same time as her mother because she steals the diadem from her.
Correct.
So it suggests that Slytherin is, the Bloody Baron was taught by Slytherin.
Okay. Yes.
Right.
That would suggest that. And so from there, I guess on some level, if he's a Baron, that's a kind of That's a rank, right?
That's some kind of title.
Like a duke.
Like a duke or some sort of landowner. And the fact that this is always one of those things that it's like, there's the Baron and he wants to marry Helena Ravenclaw. And what Ravenclaw's like big item is or artifact is a tiara. It's like there's a certain amount of like royalty floating around in this area of stuff.
it almost like one of my like own personal like pieces of headcanon is that the Ravenclaws in the non-wizarding world were of some kind of like nobility. Like they would be regarded, and maybe their wealth is being created through magic, but people don't know that. It's like their closely guarded secret. So I could even see a world where part of like the appeal of leaving that noble lifestyle is going off with her best friends,
with Godric and Salazar and Helga.
Yes, exactly.
Off on the countryside, going on adventures.
Going off on adventures, yes, exactly. Because she is like, we are magical, we have a gift, we should be trying to like help other people who are like us to harness these abilities and do good things and learn how to learn all the right stuff attached to magic and expand the possibilities. And I could see a world where the nobility would adhere so heavily to exactly the things you see nobility adhere to, which is basically like what it takes to maintain in good standing in society. Like optics are so wildly important. All of that to say, though, is basically like it feels like the Bloody Baron, with that title in hand, with the assumption that there's some possibility that Rowena could have been of nobility, that you've got some of that world carrying over. And I guess what I'm just trying to imagine is like what.
Like, what does that have to do with Peeves, though?
What does that? No. I know. I mean, I'm trying to like paint the picture of what I think the world could have looked like with these characters in mind. What their like associated like positions or roles could have been in the castle. And one of my theories for a long time is that Hogwarts wasn't originally exclusively a school, but maybe like a haven for magical people. And so I'm trying to think if there's any possibility that like the Bloody Baron's role inside of the school could have been quite literally like guarding over the magical manifestations that existed inside of it or something.
That's interesting.
Like if the Bloody Baron had a job.
Right. Did he have like a job at school as like further than just being a student or something?
Yes.
I guess that's possible. It's like and because I always think the Bloody Baron predates Peeves. I don't think Peeves has been there like since Hogwarts has been there.
No, I don't. I think you're right. I think that we have some history on that if you go into the Pottermore archives as to like when Peeves himself arrives. But I think that also to me suggests that poltergeists can be somehow maybe like not defeated for goodsies, but like maybe they like are reborn.
I think there was like a different poltergeist like in the same vein as Peeves before Peeves.
Right.
Gosh, I'm trying to remember. There is like an article about Peeves and like how they tried to expel him once and like trap him in a bell jar, and it's just like there's really nothing you can do.
Right.
Other than just, him just sort of dissipating because he's not being manifested anymore or whatever.
Right. But so basically what I'm trying to think, though, is that as a ghost, you are the imprint of your living self, which makes me think that the Bloody Baron because like Professor Binns comes and teaches history of magic.
Yeah.
He's still able to teach history of magic effectively, even as, well, maybe not effectively, but he's still able to continue to do something he was capable of doing in life.
Yeah.
And so that makes me think that whatever the Bloody Baron did in life also would have granted him some kind of authority over these magical manifestations. That's what I'm going with.
That's what you're going with?
Because I don't have another answer. There's not an in-universe answer.
Right, yeah. I think, other than Peeves just seems scared of him.
He does just seem scared of him.
Yeah.
But again, it's like once you like learn the story, like Bloody Baron sounds like a ship captain gone wrong or something.
Yeah,
You know, like
he's just like a freaking walking tragedy. You know,
he is just a walking
Yeah.
tragedy, but he's otherwise just like a piece of like the gentry, the court. You know,
Yeah.
like I mean, he's not really like
okay, here's another explanation. The only other times Peeves listens to anybody is when Fred and George are causing absolute chaos at the school.
True.
So what if the Bloody Baron was just like a total jokester?
He's just like hilarious.
like he was just this like hilarious life of the party. Everybody loved him. He was causing nonsense everywhere, and he had this huge crush on a girl who did not like him, and that drove him mad, and he eventually like kills himself or whatever.
Okay,
And-
I don't completely hate this
Yeah.
because also this would be almost an instance where you could almost see a world where like Rowena sort of like spurs the vision of like her royal family or whatever, but then like her own daughter maybe takes things a bit more seriously than like Rowena does, who ran away from such an ability to like hang with her friends.
Yeah, but
you
like
know?
Rowena's still described as being like haughty and stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, like, yeah, maybe just
She's
compared to like Godric
compared to
Salad.
Ray, compared to the other ones, like she's like she's rebelling against her parents, but like she's still like she's still herself. She's still where she came from on some level, right?
But like so, if she picks the Bloody Baron as somebody who would be a good fit for her daughter, maybe it's somebody who she thinks would help her daughter to like lighten up a little bit.
Maybe.
I'm like so far into like the misty weeds of fanfic
I know.
right now.
Like, oh, the Bloody Baron, the creepy ghost. He was the laugh, man.
He was the Fred and George before
He
they were
was
there.
the first Fred and George. Come on.
Yeah.
Studied under Salazar, breaking rules and stuff. Oh yeah.
Maybe it was his own antics that spawned the first ever poltergeist of Hogwarts.
Peeves is of him, which is why he could control him.
All I'm really trying to say is this is a good question.
Yeah, great question.
I've never truly contemplated before, but no, it's fascinating to think about. So anyway, we'll continue to give it a ponder. Maybe we'll see it in a future theory episode over on Super Carlin Brothers.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, if you guys are watching over on YouTube, we have begun our quest for to attain the silver play button at 100,000 subscribers. So if you happen to be watching via YouTube, I understand that the subscribe button is not what it once was, but it doesn't mean that the play button that comes with it isn't still a very real thing.
It's still there.
We would love to achieve that next goal. So if you wouldn't mind just slapping that subscribe button, it would sure mean a lot to us.
Give it a quick slap. Even if you're just listening, you know what? Just be like, hey, I'm gonna open up YouTube. I don't normally do this, but boom, subscribe.
I don't normally do this.
It doesn't really mean anything, but it'd be really cool.
Yeah, it's your good deed of the day.
Yeah, it's a good deed.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
thank you so much on our quest to the silver play button, which we can put in the other thing is we have a golden frame black there, so we can put our silver play button in the golden frame.
That's exactly.
It'd be
Then
fantastic.
we can aspire to
Yeah, to the gold play button.
I
I don't think this podcast YouTube channel is ever going to have 1 million subscribers.
I never thought our first channel would ever get 1 million subscribers. So anyway,
Well, here's hoping. I suppose.
stranger things have happened. I guess that's all. Anyway, guys, as ever, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.
We will see. Yeah, next time.
Oh, sorry.
Next time we will see you through the trapdoor here on Through the Griffin Door.